Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
It's been 285 days since the drivers of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series got underway in the Sunshine State, full of optimism. However, Phil Kraus has taken 12 wins in 21 races this year, and remarkably has failed to finish outside of the podium. Today is his coronation, but also one final chance for the rest of the grid to beat the new king in a 500-mile high-speed thriller into the night. Welcome to Auto Club, welcome to the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by JewersCandy.com. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpot TV for the final round of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined alongside in a special three-man commentary booth, not just by Justin Prince, but by the one and only Joey Tevin as well. Follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/timing over the course of the night. Let's dive straight into our Butt Kicker pre-race show because, Justin, it has been like a long year in so many ways, but it feels like just yesterday that we were back at the Homestead Miami Speedway on March the 1st to get things underway, and what a roller coaster has been for so many of the drivers. One driver that hasn't had to worry about too much though is the mighty Phil Kraus, who today rides into the night as the new king.
Absolutely, as you can tell with the Next Level Racing schedule, we've gone everywhere from big tracks to short tracks, from road courses, and in some cases to tight confines of respective other ones. When it comes to all those racetracks, Phil Kraus has been absolutely consistent at each and every one of those. It's made it near impossible throughout the season for his championship competitors to keep up, and that's why he is a title champion after today getting that official crown.
That's a look at the Next Level Racing schedule, of course. A couple of new tracks that we enjoyed. Nashville was interesting. I'm not sure how much the drivers enjoyed that particular surface that shredded through the Shires. Of course, the Motegi doubleheader, a personal highlight of mine. Let's talk, though, about the butt kicker driver standings. Of course, Phil Kraus, crown champion in all but 500 miles, but of course still plenty to play for here with double points on the line, Joey. Alexander Van der Sant sits second with his teammate Robert Malechka in third, Connor Harrington trying to leapfrog his way forward along with the likes of Caleb Bensi. In what is expected to be a high-stakes affair here with 5 and 6 wide maybe the norm, staying out of trouble and getting to the end is what these drivers must focus on.
Yeah, surviving a 500-mile race is difficult enough when you do it at a place like Indianapolis or a place like Pocono where things are generally more single-filed out. This is going to be 500 miles of essentially pack racing. I'm not sure we'll see 5 or 6 wide, maybe at the finish, but we're going to see quite a bit of 3 wide, quite a bit of 2 wide action. It might look like a pace lap in the mid-stages of the race. It's going to be all about surviving with those double points, especially when you're like Andrew Marquez and Josh Chin, for example. There's 1 point between you two. You just need to finish ahead of your fellow drivers, and you'll have a shot.
Of course, notably, Justin, very quickly, just to finish our look at the driver standings, Adam Blocker, not even in the top 10. Our outgoing champion, yes, has been missing for large parts of the second half of the season, but it was fair to say that even in the first half, Phil Kraus was really putting the pressure onto Adam Blocker while he ran away with the points lead.
Yeah, it's, to say the very least, been a dominant campaign for Kraus. But of course, Adam Block, remember having plenty of travel with his real-world commitments when it comes to the IndyCar scene and keeping up with those respective commitments. When he's been on the track, I will say, when it comes to Adam Blocker, he has been consistent. 4 of the victories Kraus didn't get went to Blocker. He's 11th in those points.
Here's a look at the HyperX Team Championship. Another championship wrapped up, and that's going to be the story of all the points that we look at. Private Label Team Hype have dominated this championship now for going on 2 years. Power Slide Adrenaline Push, but partially with Blockers. Second half of the year proving quite busy. They're going to end up over 500 points back at least, looking likely as we stand right now. Power Slide Ignition jumping in front of Synergy Motorsports Silver with still 1 race to go. Close confines there, of course. Drivers paired up in teams of 3, so track that over the course of the next couple of hours. A look at the rookie standings powered by Butt Kicker, of course, another championship that's already wrapped up, but we've got a strong rookie class still to talk about. Of course, not just the top 3 that run, of course, in the Drivers' Championship top 3 as well, but Joey, the likes of Matthias Kraus have had a fantastic second half of the year, and we're looking for the Ascari Autosports duo to be rejoined by Barrett Rolfe and maybe look to be fighting towards the front.
You can't really count any of these drivers out. This is why we come to Fontana for the final race. The championships might be wrapped up. The rookie championship is wrapped up. The overall championship is wrapped up. The team's championship is wrapped up. But every single one of these drivers is still looking at this race as sort of a great equalizer and a chance for somebody like Kite Bommersbach or Matthias Kraus or anybody who hasn't gotten a win yet to finally take their first win in the last race of the season.
Talk quickly about the Gomez Sim Industry Series details as we head into the final round of the 10th season of this Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's still only the 9th year of the Lionheart Racing Series. We campaigned the latest American open wheel machine, the Dallara IR18, using custom fixed setup built by RaceSpot's own Andrew Kinsella for the very final time in the series history. Drivers will have the front and rear anti-roll bars as well as the weight jackers to play with to fine-tune their car over the course of the fuel run. Cash and prizes totaling up to over $10,000 with our series champion Phil Kraus walking away with the Gomez Sim Industries Formula Pro Elite rim as well as a next level racing GT track cockpit. Of course, one new champion to be crowned, another one will regain their championship in all but a couple of hours. Now talking about the Moser Racing event details as we land back up at the traditional season finale in the Golden State. Starting on the front row has seen drivers reach HyperX victory lane in 3 of the previous races. But JP, we know this is a track where it's going to go all the way down to the wire, including just a couple of years ago, the 5th closest finish in series history, just over a 100th of a second.
Finishes can be extremely tight at this racetrack, to say the very least. Lead changes can be very common. We've seen that in Season 9, back with 46 of them. But don't forget, if you have the right strategy, you can cut through the pack. In the past, Adam Blocker, back in Season 7, funnily enough, went from 32nd to victory lane. So it's about choosing the right strategy, making your way through the pack, keeping it clean, surviving all 500 miles, 250 laps, on the docket. The question is, can drivers do it? And better yet, do we see a new winner at Auto Club, or do we see, say, a multiple-time winner here like Andrew Kinsella add to that?
Well, to your point, JP, Joey, one thing that we have to think about here is timing of cautions and how you play out a strategy cycle where you can save a lot of fuel. Adam Blocker from 32nd still led the most laps, so he used strategy to work his way to the front and then dominated from there. Track position maybe not as important as some may think, but swap drafting maybe not as common as in Indianapolis, but very much still very important.
It's going to be a very different style of racing from what we normally see at Indianapolis, where there is generally just a train of drivers circulating around the 2.5 miles. The first 2 drivers are switching around, everybody else is just kind of riding in line. It's going to be like that to the extreme here. If you are in the back of the pack, if you are in 17th or 18th, you can ride, you can save quite a bit of fuel.
Here's a look then as the sun sets below the mountains that surround this Auto Club Speedway, to be immortalized in this configuration on the iRacing service, of course, with the facility to be redesigned and to be reprofiled into a short track. Qualifying underway for the final time this season, and JP, drivers get the track to themselves in 5 minutes. Something that you've already noticed that is that some of the drivers starting to work on some fuel burning to make sure the cars are as light as possible.
The lighter the car, the faster it goes, right? And that's the main concept when it comes to some of the drivers doing that currently. Several drivers did elect to just go out quickly, 4 to be precise. Of note, Barrett Rolfe, Trevor Malone, Kite Bombersback, and Tony Schowen around the circuit. But of course, when it comes to qualifying around here, it can be a bit tricky with some of the bumps. It's important to maintain momentum. Some drivers especially like to run the momentum up high to be able to then round the bottom the second time around, as we've seen in Speedway.
As we mentioned a couple of times already, Barrett Rolfe, one of the notable returnees for the final round of the championship. Also a couple of drivers finishing up their trial periods in the series. That includes the likes of Trevor Malone. The first lap time starting to be thrown up onto the board. It's Bombersback initially fastest on lap number 1. Quite stark a comparison to what the rest of the drivers have done here, Joey, because I think the preferred thing, like we saw from Barrett Rolfe, is use lap 1 to run up high and build up the speed and then minimize the distance on the second lap.
I think that's exactly what we did see there, but Kite has gone for a fast lap on the first lap. I think he's just trying to get a banker in case there is some sort of error on the second lap. It's better to get a lap down at all than it is to not qualify at all. But Barrett Rolfe has managed to survive here on the second lap, hasn't clipped the apron or anything, and I think you're going to see him hop straight up to pole here on that second lap. Not quite, still about half a tenth off, so all that speed he built up on the first lap clearly wasn't enough. Kite still had that speed on lap 1.
I think it shows that maybe Bombersback first lap is very, very impressive. Now this is Joshua Chin on his first lap. Very stark contrast, because already through turns 1 and 2 he is going very slowly. Now I have to throw Joshua Chin under the bus straight away here as we get underway. We've just finished up VCO Pro Sim Infinity, 24 races in 24 hours. Joshua Chin unfortunately did less racing than he was meant to, because he slept through his alarm yesterday morning. And now he tucks down onto the apron on the opening lap. Not sure that's exactly what he expected to do. 37.153 on his first lap, and, well, Joey, that's not how you expect to start your second lap either.
I'm sure he'll take that on the chin, though, and he'll try to improve on this. On the second lap, he's very, very low in 1 and 2, which is interesting. It's a lot lower than I normally expect, but he is trying to get below that seam, I think. There is a seam For whatever reason, however they built these tracks, both Auto Club and Michigan in the similar shape, there's always a seam entering turn 1 that you want to avoid. But here comes Chin. Now he's on the apron. No loose moment down there. 32.675.
Oh, it's pole position by just 200. And notice that Marquez, Harrington, Musselman, Branch, and all of these drivers going significantly slower on lap number 1. I think what we're seeing here, JP, is the potential to conserve tires and then light them up on that second lap. Note the special livery, by the way, for the private label Team Hype, as Musselman goes now up to the top by a further half a tenth. The gold on the side of the team champions.
You'd already starting the celebrations, but you are right in that regard. A lot of drivers have picked up where if you're saving a little bit of tire for the first half, if not 3/4 of the run, you can go a little bit faster potentially on the second lap. Good example, Jason Brophy, top of the board, Connor Harrington second. The drivers who followed that pattern already jumping across Joshua Chin's time.
So Jason Brophy now the benchmarker as Adam Blocker winds to the line. The final race that he'll run as number 1 at least for another 12 months. It's a 32.626. It's only good enough for 5th position. What does Van der Sande do? 7th for him, a year on from his debut in this series at this track. Power Slide unable to crack their way to the front row provisionally. A private label Team Hype lockout in qualifying once again. Go Fast time is over. We're ready to juke it out for the Gomez Sim Industries race for the championship. It's time to run you down through the butt kicker starting grid for the final time this season. It is Jason Brophy that racks up pole position number 2 in his Lionheart IndyCar Series career. He'll line up alongside his teammate, Connor Harrington, as the private label Team Hype look to sail off into the sunset with the team championship. Robert Malechka and AJ Musselman alongside on row number 2 with Alexis Newsom inside of the outgoing series champion, Adam Blocker. Andrew Kinsella has actually qualified decently for once. He's up in 7th alongside his Power Slide Adrenaline teammate Alexander Van der Sande. Phil Kraus, the newly minted champion, 9th alongside Joshua Chin to bookend the top 10. Tyler Graff and Kite Bombers back 11th and 12th positions with Caleb Bensi inside of Andrew Marquez, Matt Taylor and Alex Guyon rolling from 15th and 16th positions. Stefan Larkamp and then Joe Branch on row 9 with 19th seeing Tony Showen alongside Luke Daniels to complete the top 20. Barrett Rolfe on return again struggles in qualifying, but we know he'll carve his way up through the field. He'll be in 21st alongside Trevor Malone, Matt Houston, the final 2 cars with lap times in qualifying. Mitchell Riggs in the Ascari Autosport Machine 24th with Ron Hacker, Michael Goodman, Brian Beard and Bradley Sexton rounding out the 28 cars that will do battle for what is bound to be an exciting 250 laps here at the Auto Club Speedway. They file their way onto the pit lane, getting ready to fire up the engines and roll for what is a rather short pace lap. As always, featured onboard cameras to run you down. Let's start with Brian Beard, who has Gomez Sim Industries riding over the shoulder. Makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
Riding with the butt kicker on board this evening, moving the 98 at Tyler Graff. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com.
No Chris Lanini today, so instead we switch to Adam Blocker, who rides with HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Joey, this is going to be a wild one. Track conditions only going to get cooler, but the intensity on track will only rise.
The intensity is going to rise over all 500 miles. We heard that in practice they were doing 4 and 5 wide with 132 degrees track temp. The track temp is going to drop below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. As the sun is going down, you can already see the beautiful orange California glow on the racing surface. It's only going to get darker, it's only going to get cooler, and it's only going to get crazier.
Of course, home to many a close finish. JP, I'm going to throw you onto the spot. Who comes out on top in our final round of the championship?
Can't count out Philip Kraus, obviously, but I have a feeling Adam Blocker might try and get win number 5 to close it out.
So here we go. It's been a long year. Started back at the very beginning of March in the Sunshine State. Today we ride into the sunset. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by JurasCandy.com. Leading at the end of lap number 1, Jason Brophy and Connor Harrington swapping back and forth, but for 250 laps the intensity will only bubble up to the surface before we duke it out on those final couple of laps on the run to the checkered flag. JP, right now all we need to do, if you're a driver, is settle into the rhythm and figure out how everyone around you is looking to race.
Well, it's already clear with the leaders already in the first lap and 3/4. Private Label Team Hype wants to try and swap draft. Compare that to the heart of the pack where you see Alexander Van de Sande a little more side by side. Some of them, if anything, want to just stay single file and ride along even in the early stages and save fuel to be able to try to extend the fuel mileage.
On board with Joshua Chin, and even though it's a track that is very, very wide, Joey, the one thing that drivers do need to consider is where cars around them are going, because once you can commit to a line, if someone else has committed to that one already, you're going to feel the impact of the dirty air.
The dirty air is very, very strong at Auto Club, and it gets even stronger when drivers are running side by side. We are mostly single file all the way to the back of this 28-car field, but once you do start getting that pack running, once you do start getting 3 and 4 wide, it's very, very difficult to run in the dirty air. So everybody's using their in-car tools. Hopefully everybody has done plenty of practice in dirty air running. I can guarantee you they have, because it is quite the adjustment when you're adjusting to being behind the dirty air 2 cars wide.
Maybe a bit surprised here, JP, that for Barrett Rolfe, he's only up, 2 positions so far in this race. He's taking it a bit slow so far.
Well, the reason it's a little funny is if you remember back from last year, it was Michigan where he went from about the same starting position up to the lead in about 8 or 9 laps. So it's a little more difficult, obviously, with Auto Club because it takes a lot of time. The bumps slow down a bit of the rapid speed you have compared to, say, the smoothest of modern-day Michigan or even the older Michigan scan on the iRacing platform. Not as easy to cut your way through the pack compared to Michigan.
No, absolutely not. It's Joshua Chin that is starting to work his way forward. 5 spots up into the top 5, and now trying to make it 3 Private Label Team Hype cars inside of the podium spots. Phil Krause has been unable to work his way forward. He's, I say, stuck back in 11th spot, but for a driver that's won 12 out of 21 races so far, the only thing that he's got to be worried about, Joey, is avoiding that apron for another 245 laps.
I think he definitely wants to keep the streak alive. It's a pretty incredible accomplishment if you can go through a 22-race season, finishing every single race on the podium, but this is probably going to be the most difficult place to do that because everybody is so close together. It is the most equalized race of the season. I think I can say that much. So this might be the most difficult time Phil Krause has all season to end up on the podium, but he's done it 21 times. Oh, dear.
Tyler Graf up the track, and Tony Schowen able to get on the anchors. Will allow a couple of cars to squeak on through, but this is by no means an easy ride around Auto Club, and I think we got a very visual description of that one, Joey.
Yeah, you don't want to clip the apron. You do not want to clip the apron. You don't want to do it anywhere, but especially here, because once you do that, you're just getting flung up the track. We ride on board now with Tyler Graf. Down in turn 1, just gets a little bit too low, just barely clips it, barely gets over the white line. It was a good save. He was also lucky there was nobody to his outside, but I can guarantee you that everybody in the second half of the pack was very, very scared that we're already doing a little bit of apron clipping this early.
They go back and forth at the front, and JP, we're not going to really get too excited about it. It's swap drafting. It gains them about 3/10 a lap, but they're not being allowed to break away at this point just yet. I think they are going to be a little bit concerned about when we get to the pit stop cycle, how that's going to play out, because pit stop entry with low downforce and coming off the banking, it's a treacherous proposition at the best of times.
Yeah, we've seen in just about Green Flag Racing Speedway and a fair few drivers picked to be speed penalties, and even the championship contenders had crashes on the pit entry, remember. So that's something to think about as this race goes on. Being able to enter with the midst of traffic, especially even a teammate, they're trying to sync up the strategies. But I will say this, AJ Musselman's holding on his own so far, holding on to the top 4 so far, was keeping in 3rd before Joshua Chin did Joshua Chin things and make a pass.
Yes, but Joshua Chin hasn't had to enter pit road just yet, which is the other thing that Joshua Chin, as always, is going to be very, very scared about. I feel very bad, but I'm definitely going to throw Joshua Chin under the bus quite a lot today, just because he did sleep through an alarm for a race. I did see in the Team Talent Discord that the reason that he slept through his alarm, Joey, is he had set his alarm volume to 14%.
That's even worse when you accidentally leave your phone on silent mode. I've done that a couple times to the point where every time I go to bed now, I'm like, is my phone on silent? And every time it always is, so I'm glad I always remember that at 2 a.m.
Oh, and you remember at 2 a.m.
Exactly. The second I'm laying down, I'm like, did I remember to take my phone off silent? Nope. It's a good thing I remembered.
Yeah,
it's like a Pavlovian reaction.
Exactly.
Why are you up at 2 a.m.?
Why aren't you up at 2 a.m.?
Adam Blocker getting pinched down low. They will go 3 wide in the heart of the pack, and guess who's coming? It's Barrett Rolfe charging up into the top 10. 12 positions gained, and the Ascari Autosport number 3, JP, maybe heard us talking and is reminding us of why we fell in love with him in 2021.
And now he's starting to go a little bit. As the tire wear is starting to drop off a little bit, that's one of his strengths. When it comes to the starts of races like this, he knows how to carry the momentum and carry the speed and pick the right line to then make a pass. It's going to be the major thing, though, of can he then maintain the track position, because that's been a trouble spot in the past, has been keeping clean. He continues, though, to use that outside like a ramp.
Working nicely for him, getting a nice toe from Malechka down the back straightaway, and works up now towards 8th. Seems to be favoring the charge around the outside. Sails it into the entry of turn 3. Malechka doesn't offer up too much of a fight. And Barrett Rolfe says, thank you very much. Couple of positions in just 1 lap. Adam Blocker and Phil Kraus are both down positions. Blocker down 4, Kraus down 6. Or flip that the other way around. Blocker down 6, Kraus down 4. Being conservative to start this race off, I'd say. And I think part of that here, Joey, is the fact that given that we're not expecting anyone to be breaking away, clean air fuel window, probably around 38, 39 laps. Fuel saving window, maybe 44, 45 laps.
This is honestly probably the best place to be. You might not think it would be. You're 2 seconds behind the lead. You're running 11th, 12th, 13th, but right now there's still 235 laps left to go. When there's not going to be any breakaways, it doesn't really matter where you are. The fuel saving is the most important thing, because when there's 5 laps of difference between clean air running and between running in the pack, essentially, where you can save fuel, you can do the math there. That's multiple pit stops. That's going to be something like 35 seconds less with the... That math doesn't really check out, but you get the idea.
Yes, now I did want to warn you, Joey, by the way. Now that you've experienced Lewis McLeod in the coverage box, don't believe all this science stuff. Commentators are not meant to be trusted, so don't...
We're not allowed to do math.
Yes, well, apparently he tried to convince you of McLeod science, and, you know...
Well, I believe the rule of 6, but that's not math. That's like logic. You learn that at the University of Science.
I don't know about that one. That was a very sketchy rule of 6, if you ask me. If you're watching along on RaceSpot TV, hello! Still a long way to go in this race, and we are riding around for about 40 laps in these fuel windows. Let us know where you're watching from and who you're cheering for, because we're very curious exactly who is following along. Front of the field, top 5 update, Brophy, Harrington and Chin. Private label Team Hype running in line with Musselman and Bensi behind them. And now Andrew Kinsella, I did note, JP, after his fantastic qualifying performance by his standards, has dropped down back to a 21st position. I think voluntarily trying to stay out of trouble.
Possibly, maybe also with the fuel. And notice he is a little bit slower down the straightaways compared to some of his competitors. They're reaching about 232 max. Around some of the same spots, he's about 3 miles an hour off, and that can be about a couple tenths of a second alone at this racetrack. So in some of these cases, drivers are saying absolutely, may as well let the race settle itself out, be patient, because you need to be at the end of the race to have a shot at winning the race, right?
I mean, I hope so, but based on some of the driving standards that we saw in VCO Pro Sim Infinity. I don't think everyone really appreciated that rule of racing. So 28 cars split by 5.6 seconds. It's going to be like this for the vast majority of the racing, and as Alexander Van der Sant has to almost slide his way down low to avoid ramping back up into Alex Guyon as they went 3 wide down back straightaway. I think one thing that we always talk about with the best sim racers, Joey, is how calm they can truly be, even in the midst of a battle like this.
It is remarkable. If we had any on boards with some of these drivers, we saw it in VCO Infinity, especially a couple of days ago, with every driver. They're just chill, you know. 3-car wreck on lap 1 from pole. Who cares? Get back in the game. That's what being a pro is all about. If I was in this pack right now, I would be sweating. I would probably be in a Barrett Rolfe situation. That's generally how these races go. When I'm in an Indy fixed race, I'm just driving my way forward, pushing my way forward, and then suddenly everything falls apart later on in the stint. But I don't think anybody's sweating just yet. It's still very, very early days, and we're barely even halfway through this first stint.
I definitely don't think we are going to be seeing too many people sweating just because of this track conditions. I mean, yes, it's nice in the evening in California, but I mean, Justin, by no means is it sweltering, and this is pretty ideal conditions, you'd have to say, for racing here at Fontana.
Those track conditions for the track temp actually went down a bit from qualifying, I did notice, so that's something to think about as the lights turn on, as it gets to nighttime. Those temperatures likely to drop down, in turn dropping the track temperature, adding a little bit more grip and potentially more speed. Potentially may tighten things up. We'll have to watch as the race goes on, how a lot of these drivers adjust with the ring car tools, especially as we make our way through these runs.
And Barrett Rolfe has made his way to 4th. 17 positions gained. Welcome to the Barrett Rolfe show, Joey. Welcome to Lionheart.
Barrett Rolfe is after my own heart. It's just full push, drive your way forward. Not really thinking about, you know, saving fuel or doing what Blocker and Kraus are doing, just riding in the middle of the pack, saving fuel or whatever. The moves are there. The opportunities are there. You know what? Why not go for them? Get some track position, keep driving your way forward, and if it comes back to bite you and those tires are suffering at the end of the stint, so be it. But right now, you're having quite a bit of fun. You're putting on a show.
Track conditions, Joey does want to point out, because he doesn't believe in Celsius in the better metric unit. 32 Celsius, about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which, to be fair, is a little bit more realistic than some of the other track conditions that sometimes you used to see at Auto Club, where basically no matter what you did, it would be 65 degrees Fahrenheit track conditions. So a little bit warmer than that. Barrett Rolfe now goes to work on Joshua Chin, continuing to ride that upper groove, but as he works more and more forward, to Joey's point, JP, maybe Barrett Rolfe does have to start thinking, okay, I've got track position now, let me see what I can do about fuel saving. One thing you can do, it's not just about lifting and coasting in this IR18, you do have fuel maps that you can play with that will help you out quite a bit as well.
Yeah, that's going to be something to keep an eye on if we see Barrett Rolfe start to play with those maps. He did have to lift a little bit, you just seen in 3 and 4 with the aero wash, since Joshua Chin chose his line. But it doesn't seem like he's necessarily switched to that quite yet. Seems like he's more concerned about the charge still to be able to try and, at the very least, get up to the leaders. And then maybe think from there. The tough thing's going to be that puts him behind the 8 ball where he'll have to play a little bit with the fuel mats maybe later on in the race with the chance of the strategies.
Meanwhile, his teammate, Kite Bomber's back, Mitchell Riggs, embroiled in a fight for 13th place. Bomber's back on the back of Adam Blocker, but then Mitchell Riggs still has Josh Chin and Phil Kraus behind him. Now, Barrett Rolfe, I do think, has sailed past Joshua Chin, who didn't put up too much of a fight. Still very early stages, as we're only about 10 laps away from getting into the fuel window. And if we went green from here, which is not a totally unrealistic thing to think about with a race here at Auto Club. We did it back in Season 3 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, Joe. You still got 2 hours of racing like this, and I think Jason Brophy says, well, if Barrett Rolfe wants to be at the front, Barrett Rolfe can be at the front.
That's exactly what Barrett Rolfe wants right now, and he hasn't fallen off yet. There's still about 13 laps left in this stint. There might be less for him because he's not leading the race, but he's also not saving any fuel because every single lap he is just sending it to the outside, getting out of the dirty air. He's full throttle, building up extra speed. He's using up just as much fuel as the race leader. So I think him and Connor Harrington are basically on the same strategy right now fuel-wise. If anything, Barrett Rolfe might be worse because Harrington's been able to save a little bit of fuel doing the switchback with Brophy. Barrett's trying to go for the lead. He's peeked to the outside a couple of times, but is this going to be it in turn 1? Nope, still can't build the momentum up, but I think he's going to get a good run into turn 2, and again, I don't think Harrington's going to fight it too hard if Barrett really does want the lead.
It needs to be now, though, about trying to work together to swap once more, you'd have to think, but see how they link on up. Alexis Newsom, 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series champion, another one of our returning drivers, was trying to work on Caleb Bensi, but with worn tires, low line not working as well as she would have wanted, Larkamp able to work back in front of them, and now here comes Alexander Van der Sant trying to work on the factory back duo.
Rewind yet again, and you can just see that bottom, that grip is just gone, and you have to just be able to lift a little bit more, let the car rotate. That's really costing drivers. If you want to make a pass, it seems, it's either down the front stretch or doing on the outside in the midst of the corner in the first place.
Back up at the front, Brophy now saying, you know what, I'll go even further back in the queue, and even though when you swap back and forth you're saving some fuel, I think this is the recognition of Jason Brophy that there are other drivers out on track that have been working much harder and much more committed to the fuel mileage game. He's slipping back outside of the top 5 right now, and I think might even try and link up with Phil Kraus maybe a little bit further back. Kraus back in the 18th position, so 2 of the private label teammates may be able to coordinate and work together. Now you'll notice you can just see that the pit entry is just to the left-hand side of the exit of turn number 4, Joey, and that's why I was mentioning earlier that pit entry here is going to be important to coordinate and communicate with the rest of the pack around you.
You need to communicate, because if you don't, you will get taken out. You will get a IR-18 to the rear end. So everybody will be calling out their pit entries on the radio. I can guarantee that everybody will be disciplined in that aspect. But it is still an extremely difficult pit entry, especially with the transition from the banking to the apron. There's no avoiding that. There's no pit lane, warm-up lane. There's no entry lane. There's none of that. You're just swerving hard left off of the racing surface onto the pit lane, and that's caught out many drivers in the past.
On board with Adam Blocker as he now rides behind his teammate Alexander Van der Sant, both fanning out, trying to make sure they don't cost each other time. There was a pop out from Luke Daniels as they go almost 3 wide for a moment. Phil Kraus all the way back now to the 18th position. Not going to be too much of a worry, of course. Still a long, long way to go. Justin, we've had some new tracks for this 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series campaign. Some new tracks have joined the iRacing calendar over the course of 2022. Are there any tracks that have caught your eye and that you would think, you know what, I'd be quite curious to see how some IR-18s would race out there?
Very curious about the new French circuit of Magny-Cours that came to the platform. That one comes to mind because it seems to be a nice track with different braking marks, but also different flowing sections from high speed to low speed. That's something that comes to mind in terms of that question.
What about you, Joey? I mean, of course, I know you love a bit of Rudskogen.
Open this box up, Arjuna. Open it up.
I know you love Rudskogen, Oschersleben, but, I mean, realistically, what are you thinking?
Well, the Indy Open Series in official will be going to Rudskogen next season, so it's not the most harebrained idea. I don't know how good of a race that would be, but they're going to try it in the Open Series, and I guess if that's any good, they might start thinking about it in Lionheart. But honestly, the place I really want to see Indy cars take on is Martinsville. I think that could be interesting. It's heavy braking. It's just 2 hairpins. It would probably be a wreck fest. There'd probably be a lot of payments made to Delara, but I think it could be good with the right field of drivers.
And my idea of the 24 hours of the LA Coliseum was crazy.
Yeah, no,
I like that too.
2 people that are not allowed to ever speak in the Racewalk TV commentary booth ever again. Barrett Rolfe is still trying at the very front of the field as the sun continues to set here. Down the back straightaway work. Of course, we're just coming off an iRacing build week, so some of these drivers had a rude awakening. I think it was on Sunday night or on Monday morning when Trading Pates went on Twitter to say iRacing was going to totally break everything with spec maps, Joey, and what fun everyone had at that announcement.
Yeah, spec maps were already wizardry to me. I am no livery designer. I leave that up to the professionals, but things have gotten even more difficult. We've got clear coats. We've got all sorts of weird stuff, but luckily, All these painters, all the gang at Private Label Team Hype, they always put good liveries together. And I'm always a fan of that little gold trim, that little bit of shininess.
Yeah.
Anything gold, anything chrome, big fan.
Yeah, and of course that is the new paints that they had midway through this year, designed by the wonderful Juan at iLiveries, who was very busy this week putting together BMW MV Hybrid paints for VCR Pro Sim Infinity. He had 2 days to do about 10 different paints. Got them in on time, looking spectacular as always. On to lap 38 we are going to go, and JP, for Connor Harrington and probably for Barrett Rolfe, a lap at most away, I would assume, from having to dive down to the pit lane.
No signals yet. Still keeping up the swap draft. So again, it's going to be important to make sure you are in the best situation. And it looks like it is indeed coming in. Connor Harrington, despite the swap draft, just had Joshua Chin call over the radio. He is coming. The window is open.
So here we go, and Joshua Chin almost just spiked his teammates as Connor Harrington, without any further drama, is able to make his way down to the pit lane. It's now Barrett Rolfe, Josh Chin, Alexis Newsom, the front three, and I did see for Alexis Newsom, Christian Steele jumping in to say hello, the 2022 iRacing Indianapolis 500 champion, as Barrett Rolfe jumps over the back of Joshua Chin and into the wall, and as Barrett Rolfe's charge just come to an end.
That was quite a heavy hit to the ground. There's definitely front wing damage. It doesn't look like that's repaired itself. He's not going to pit in yet. He's still out on track. I don't know if that steering wheel is straight, but that car does look like it's struggling, and that was a pretty big hit to the back of Josh Chin, especially the hit to the ground as well. We're right on board now with Barrett Rolfe. Down the back straight.
He's
Josh
slow.
Chin's gonna,
he is
slow. He's very
slow, and let's just ride here because he's going for a hole that never really existed, if we're being honest, Joey.
Just drove into him. No one to blame but himself. I think he expected that hole to open a little bit more. I think he expected Chin to swerve down and pit, honestly, but no, that was just a little bit of a clumsy move by Barrett Rolfe.
And fortunately for Chin, does not seem to have incurred any lasting damage because JP just 9.7 seconds in the box.
Scheduled pit stop time total. So Chin getting very lucky. Barrett Rolfe not so much, likely going to be a 13-second plus stop. No other wing changes for the other drivers so far, but the calls are starting to come in bunches now. And now it's going to get even more busier on how you enter this pit lane.
So Benson, Newsom both ducking down low, and they'll enter along with Mitchell Riggs in the Ascari Autosport machine, I believe, as here we go, more and more takers down towards the safety of pit lane. Lap 42 though, so already a spread of about 3 laps in terms of pit stop the stint length, and I mean ultimately I think we are expecting the likes of Blocker, Kraus and many more to try and go at the very least 2 more laps. Blocker sails his way on through, he's not slowing down for anyone.
Yeah, Larkamp was the blocker there for some reason. I don't know why he blocked so aggressively down the back straight if he was just going to be pitting anyway, but here comes Larkamp. I think that's Alex Guillaume. No, it's Tyler Graff in the background who's coming in as well. Andrew Marquez. We're starting to reach the end of the limit here, and there's a black flag for AJ Musselman as well.
Must be speeding on pit entry then, as one of the risks of having low downforce here will unfortunately compromise him. That seems to be on the pit exit actually, so we'll have to likely see him duck down once again, and indeed he's fading his way down left. 11 cars yet to pit. Alexander Van der Zandt becomes the latest in the cycle, JP, along with a handful more, but Blocker, Malechka, Kraus, Kinsella and Taylor all able to go longer along with Beard and Sexton.
Remember, when it comes to some of those drivers, they drop back in the middle of the run. In fact, in the early stages, some of them, in the case of Kinsella, to the 20s. So they have been saving hard, thinking big picture. In some of these cases, at least 4 or 5 laps longer than some. But look at how close this came at the start of the window. That was way high up on the braking mark. Lucky to not get rear-ended by his teammate.
And here
started your window.
So Blocker and Malechka able to get to lap 44 out of 250. Now keep that number in mind, and let's see how it plays out over the course of the rest of the race. Connor Harrington, as we pick up the net race leader, has built some separation, and Joey, this is what green flag pit stops will do.
The difference between Harrington and Brophy was only 1 lap, but you can see the difference between those two that were formerly leading the race together. it's now 5 seconds between the two teammates. So Jason Brophy has unfortunately had a hellish run through pit lane. He's lost 5 seconds up in the lead, and now it's Harrington and Chin who are representing Private Label Team Hype up top, and they're going to blow by Adam Blocker and Malechka and Bensi as well. Waiting later on in the run has not really paid off for some of these drivers. The tires haven't worn that much, but you can see the effects.
It is a long-term, long-run play, I would say here, JP. The undercut powerful because you can get back into the draft of the main pack and tow around with them. However, we are now, of course, these are drivers thinking about the potential and the possibility of what a caution-free race will look like in terms of strategy at the very end.
Absolutely, especially with some of the drivers getting the fuel mileage much further than some of the projections from last year's race in particular by at least 3-4 laps. So a lot of these drivers definitely thinking about what they need to do to make it to the checker flag more so. Sacrifice the early time for the long-term gains. Now that's the thing. As we've seen before, who's going to close up to these two? Will they close up? They're already gaining behind them despite the swap draft by about a tenth a straight.
About to hit the 20% marker in this race. Grab a look at the track map and you can see where the groups have built. So the top two running down the back straightaway by themselves, split by 1.8 odd seconds. So this duo of Bensi and Riggs, who are slingshotting back and forth and bringing along with them Van der Zandt, Blocker and Malechka, the power slide trio, very content to ride in the draft. And then behind them it is stacking up all the way to about 16th position, Joey, and then we have a second category where Barrett Rolfe, after getting damage repairs, has managed to slide his way back into.
That is pretty remarkable. So well done to the pit crew on that number 33 entry to straighten out those front suspension bars, because that thing, it looks fresh, it looks new. They put a new front wing on it. I don't think Barrett Rolfe is too concerned, and he's just got to figure out how to work now with Andrew Kinsella. Are they going to do a swap draft up front? Are they just going to ride in line? Well, there's your answer to my question instantly. He is going to pass Kinsella. I'm sure Kinsella will go for the move again, because that's the only thing they can do. They can just try and swap. They can try and build up speed and hope that that's what brings down a 3.5-second gap.
Race control, by the way, has confirmed no further action for the contact between Barrett Rolfe and Joshua Chin. Meanwhile, Bensi and Riggs working very, very effectively to already having brought down the gap to the race leaders to about 1.2 odd seconds and still closing. Of course, JP, not just one Lionheart competition anymore. We've got 3 of them here live on RaceSpot TV. The Lionheart Speedway Series breaks out that Dallara DW12 and travels around the ovals available on iRacing. This, the IndyCar Series on a Wednesday night, features this IR18 around the world, and still one more finale to go. This coming Thursday night, the Lionheart Retro Series in its Lotus 79s head back here to Fontana to close out their season.
And that should be an exciting one, keep in mind, with the type of racing that's produced at these circuits, the potential of even more 4 and 5 wide action, to say the very least. It's been great to see how things have played out, though, with the championship. We'll say Mike Rasmus has looked very strong again in his Lotus 79. Matt Taylor having a strong chance if there's some bad luck there, which we've seen bad luck on the Speedway Series Championship, mind you, in its finale. And he might be a 2 out of 3 champion this year in series titles.
True. I don't think we are expecting anything as dramatic as last year when, come the checker flag at the end of the race, we had 2 drivers tied on points, tied on victories, and I think we had to go back to the count back on second place finishes before we could determine if Aaron Morgan or Matt Taylor was going to be crowned the series champion. So, yes, hopefully a little less confusing, a championship situation this time around. Starting to pack back up once again, but only this time with 16 cars. Kinsella and Rolfe have been unable to figure out how to work together here, Joey. The gap growing to 4.5 seconds.
Well, Mitchell Riggs almost just Barrett Rolfe himself down the back straight with Caleb Bensi. They were not leaving each other much room at all there, but it doesn't really matter. They have brought that gap down. It's about a second at Chin and Harrington, so this lead pack will expand from the 2-car pack to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so the Lewis McGlade rule of 6 does not apply here at all, but he said it only applied to the IRO4, so it can't apply here.
Lewis McGlade is just making up stuff. Lewis McGlade also doesn't believe in the commentator's curse, which is how you know he's wrong. Around the outside, Mitchell Riggs not going to be able to fend off Alexander Van der Sande after they went 3 wide a lap ago, and now the Power Slide trio starting to try and work their way a little bit more forward here. Putting themselves in the right place at the right time. AJ Musselman, by virtue of that speeding penalty, unfortunately, JP, not going to be enjoying the rest of this race. He is 2 laps down from your leaders.
That's what happens when you make one mistake on the pit entry, or in his case, exit. A 40-second stop and hold is the penalty for speeding, so you cannot afford to make a mistake on that entry. It can cost you any chance of the win today. Interestingly enough, though, we mentioned the time lost between these two. Over the radio, Andrew Kinsella is starting to give commands to Rolf on how to swap draft. Remember, Barrett Rolf's got real-world racing experience. No swap this time. Rolf was too far out.
It's all about working together, and even then there are just sometimes combos that work together better. I always bring this up, but earlier this year, the iRacing Indianapolis 500, Brandon Traino told me that if it was him and Michele Costantini at the front of the field, they were about a 10th or 2/10ths quicker per lap when they were swap drafting than any other combination of drivers in the Apex Racing team at I5G stable, Joey. So it is a skill, and it is something that you can only pick up by doing it over and over again.
That's what's difficult about it. It's practice makes perfect, but it also is something kind of naturally ingrained in the drivers, and especially ingrained when you're 2 teammates that work perfectly together. It's kind of like when you have a singing duo. They always sound better when they're members of the family because it's like a blood harmony there. You kind of need that with a teammate, even if they're not family, even if they're not thinking the same way as you. You've got to be on the same wavelength to be 1/10 a lap faster than anybody else.
I think Andrew Kinsella maybe has just decided he doesn't want to swap around with Barrett Rolf anymore, because he's going to let Guyon, Daniels, and a handful more just slide on past and allow them to try and work with Barrett Rolf front of the field. Still seeing Chin Harrington go back and forth and back and forth. Justin, of course, we've just come off an iRacing build. The one thing that we didn't discuss is changes to this car. And that's because, fortunately, within the context of this series, there's not much that the drivers have to worry about. The main adjustment is for open setup competitions with the adjustment window at the rear of the car, with the suspension being opened up a little bit more. But fortunately, these drivers didn't then just have to completely relearn how to race around this track.
Exactly, so not too many changes with this build when it comes to the open wheel side for this car, I should say,
Yes.
on that mark. In other cars, of course, there were some changes, such as new damage models for some, as showcased in some road race spot of the weekend. But when it comes to these cars, it was essentially apples to apples once you went build to build, rather than apples to concrete brick wall.
Ooh, yes. There are some drivers that have had to do that, with the GT3s in particular getting a major overhaul, and new damage model added to them. Of course, this car already has that new damage model, which looked spectacular. Blocker now the one deciding to fall back in line. All the while, micro decisions affect your track position laps down the road. And so, as we've packed it back up, drivers starting to put themselves in the right place at the right time once again. See those movers and shakers. Mitchell Riggs plus 20, Bensie's plus 12. He's hit the very front of the field for the first time tonight. Again, very hard to get excited about all this movement, JP, because they are going slowly, I think, right now. Last time by, your race leader did a 33.5. The fastest laps of the race, a 32.5. We have dropped off a second. No one wants to lead. It's a game of chicken at the front of the field.
I love how Tower Craft just said, you know what, if no one else wants to lead it, I'll just take a lap and just zip by everybody 10 miles an hour quicker. You're right, it's like the game of fuel mapping and fuel mileage. Everyone's saying, what map should I run? Should we be careful? I want to stay tucked up. And then you have Robert Much to third saying nope and backing all the way to the back of the pack with how things are faring. So it can get a little tricky with the judgment calls here. Let's put it that way, with the distances and differences in speeds with the mileage right now being utilized.
We are on board with Robert Malechka III as he runs in the 15th spot. Now you'll see on the steering wheel there's a handful of numbers that you can see as we break out our handy little yellow pen tool.
You have a telestrator?
Oh, I have a telestrator. That's the one that would tell you what your fuel number is. Now, unfortunately, in the interest of fairness, we can't see the numbers because the number's directly opposite here. I'm going to continue breaking out my telestrator because it's too much fun. These ones. Those are
this is just a flex.
Those are your anti-roll bars. This is your weight jacker. These are all the adjustments that the drivers have, Joey.
I've been asking for a telestrator for months. I haven't got one, and then Arjuna breaks out the darn red pen. I feel like I've been shot over here. But that is exactly right. There are many tools you can work with. You are going to be watching that fuel number. I don't know if you're going to be in the highest fuel map possible. I don't know if we're in fuel map 8 running right now necessarily, because that would be very slow. But honestly, it might be possible to run in map 8 right now and stick in this draft. That's how slow everybody is going.
You say that, Joey. Have you ever made the cardinal mistake of racing in the IndyCar?
Yes, and I have done.
Okay, good.
I can count on multiple fingers on the amount of restarts I've accidentally restarted in map 8. It's not a fun time.
No, it is not a fun time, and it is much more common than I think people realize. We're starting to hustle a little bit more. We've got lap times dipping down below the 32s once again. I think it is Tyler Groff that is the one that has basically said, I'm not here to play those games. Follow me if you want. Don't if you don't.
Yeah, Riggs already trying to switch up the line, starting to struggle, notice a little bit on the bottom side, it seems. So he's saying, you know what, I feel more comfortable up here. Unfortunately, Caleb Bensey making him a bit more uncomfortable with the dirty air. But for the most part, some of these drivers just go into their comfort zones, just continuing to ride about, knowing more pit stops coming up in about a few minutes' time, thinking big picture, stay in the pack, no mistakes, don't fall back to the 17th on backpack.
66 laps about to be in the books as you see an increasing number of cars migrating their way up onto the high line. In terms of stint length, if you're curious how much each of the drivers have done in terms of fuel so far, the highest, Connor Harrington, of course, 27. He was the first to dive down towards the pit lane, almost skewered by his teammate Joshua Chin. One of the latest, Adam Blocker, 22 laps now officially on his tank as he runs up in the 5th position. Joey, this is the type of track that unfortunately IndyCar doesn't come to anymore in terms of the type of over racing that we have, but to be fair, it's the type of track that we raced in an era where the 3 and 4 wide was expected. You think back to some of the Texas races in 2015, and then you look at Auto Club, I think it was in 2015 as well. Scary stuff at times.
We think about 2015 when Ryan Briscoe and Ryan Hunter-Reay dug like a 5-foot hole in the grass in the infield because of that one incident. It was very scary racing. Pack racing always is terrifying, and that's the one good thing about this new aero kit. Sometimes we diss it at places like Indianapolis because it has resulted in single file racing. It's resulted in racing that's very difficult when you're not in the 2 lead cars of the group. But I think at Fontana, at Michigan, at tracks like this, you can put on very good racing, and you can get a little bit of pack craziness as well. It's just not quite as insane as it used to be, which is a good thing for everyone's survival.
That is true. We have seen some pretty crazy races in the Monday night official series, which we used to cover here on RaceSpot TV. Jason Brophy, by the way, starting to work his way forward and one by one reinserting himself into the equation. Let's talk a little bit then about our Moser Racing driver profile, JP, because it is the defending race winner, Connor Harrington. Now, into his 93rd career start, of which 58 of the previous 92 have resulted in top 10s. Very consistent, though, in terms of when he finishes. He's up in the mix for the top 5 as well. 7 wins, 7 poles, and a staple now at the front of this championship. Had a championship-worthy year last year. It's just that instead of Phil Krause, we had Adam Blocker. That was the one having a ridiculous year.
Yeah, Harrington did put up a strong fight last year in almost every single race. Blocker had him on the road courses, it seemed, but Harrington was having a lot of strong runs on the oval side to try and make it tight. He's very consistent on the circuit, so we'll have to see if he's going to be able to keep it up next year, especially because, again, he's one of your championship title favorites now for the past couple years running.
He has moved over down to Florida over the past year as well, so a little bit closer to his teammate Joshua Chin as the Now, two-time team champion Connor Harrington continues to power around in that second position. Kinsella's once again at the front of the second pack, Joey. Not sure if this is by choice or what, but these cars are still now 6 seconds back from those in front. They are begging for a caution at this point in time.
They are, but I don't know if their begging is going to come to fruition. We've gone almost a third of this race now. We're already almost a third of the way through this race without a caution, even with the craziness of this racing, the close calls with Harrington and Chin, the close call with Barrett Rolfe a little bit earlier. There's been nothing that really concerns me in terms of thinking about a caution coming out, but once we get into the later stages of the race, once everybody's actually racing for position and not just riding around, saving a little bit of fuel, thinking strategy, then I will start thinking more about the caution. But until then, I think the only way you're going to get a caution is if somebody kind of has a mind fart and clips the apron, or somebody wrecks into somebody coming into the pit lane.
We've seen one close moment with Tyler Graf clipping the apron, so never say never is, I think, the way I would put it. It is not impossible. We've all made mistakes and lapses in judgment. Phil Kraus now working around Kite Bomber's back as he now, maybe with intent, starts to see the opportunities to place himself a little bit better, heading into yet another pit stop cycle. Connor Harrington's on to lap 35 of the run. We're into almost our second green flag cycle, JP, and I go back to the first round of the championship when I think some were a bit worried about what was going to happen at the Homestead Miami Speedway. And for the first time in series history, we went caution-free in the season opener.
Yeah, and that was a bit of an intriguing one where it became a race of strategy, of course, in that mark when you think back to the start of the campaign. It's where in many cases you need to be prepared in case it goes caution-free. So keep in mind that when we started off in 2021 at Homestead, it was a little bit different with some of the attrition, some of the various different newcomers back then. So it's been intriguing to see the various different waves throughout the season and seeing how drivers improve, or in some cases, try and challenge the infamous caution total records throughout the campaign.
No, let's not talk about infamous caution records, especially when one of you wants us to go to Martinsville. No.
Do it.
No, not happening here. Malechka,
all we need to do is put those bumpers that they put on the indoor go-karts on these cars, and we'll be fine.
You guys are terrible. You guys are just trying to be terrible, terrible influences. I'm going to make you go and watch Motegi Retro Series last year to see what happens when you're a terrible influence on the community. Justin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You had to write the article.
It was about 5 or 6 wide for the race lead, and on lap, what was it, lap 20-ish, and they wrecked?
I don't even think it was lap 20. I think it might have even been like lap 12 or something, and we ended up with like 7 cars left. Still not maybe the most painful race I've ever had to commentate on. That I was reminded of what that was, which was a race with just 5 cars. It went predictably, Joey. We had a 2-car fight at the front for about 30 minutes, and then one of them spun, and so we had 30 minutes of literally nothing.
That sounds like some broadcasts I've been on in the past, but I think another hidden gem is the Porsche Experience Center. It's designed to be it's designed for, just driving around on your own, driving your Porsche, experiencing it there, but I think that will be a good racetrack in some small open wheel cars. Take the IRO4, take the Formula V to the Porsche Experience Center, you're going to have a good time.
Now, there are some off-season shenanigans that the Lionheart community will get up to, and we'll talk more about that maybe in a bit. Connor Harrington will get our pit stop cycle underway, Joey.
Pretty early, honestly, but I guess that is kind of expected. He was the first driver to come in the first time around. He's the first driver to come in on the second stint here. Pretty much equalized, 39 laps each, but there's still quite a few more laps for all the rest of these drivers here. Even Adam Blocker, who is the last driver to come in, Phil Kraus as well, they're only on lap number 34 of their stint, so theoretically they can go all the way to lap 88 or 89 and still be good.
And it will just continue to add up. I never trust the commentators' math, so I'm not even going to try and figure out if there is the potential for a pit stop to be eliminated here. But at the
I think there is.
There is.
We're still gambling.
45 times 5 is 220.
Yeah, and 30 laps, 5 extra laps. There could be 6 stops. I think Justin's math checks out too. We're gonna team up. We're gonna get calculators out.
I did get a calculator.
Oh, okay. So maybe a trust Justin Prince's calculator, but has Justin entered the numbers correctly? Because I made the mistake of actually breaking out a calculator, Justin, and then doing the math wrong myself.
I'm not sure how the calculator would do it wrong.
No. It's when you enter the numbers in, right? You like do the wrong math. You know what I mean?
I kind of get what you mean.
Yes, I figure. So Blocker then, maybe 8 more laps at most is what we would think, as 1 by 1. That was a bit more aggressive on the merge off of the banking onto the apron to roll. That was Mitchell Riggs who will drop and go. And again, what did we see in the previous cycle? Undercut powerful, Justin. However, it did not allow you to break away.
Yeah, if you were towards the front, the gap likely to dissipate in about 10-15 laps with the draft effect. So, while it gets you a short-term gain, long-term, we've seen some of the drivers who went for the undercut call drop back, as here comes more pit stops. We'll see how these drivers handle their entries. One a little bit hot. No speeding penalties.
Jason Brophy's in, and about where I would expect, to be honest. He's been able to extend a little bit longer, of course, than Joshua Chin and Connor Harrington, and I think that was the benefit, Joey, of him dropping back quite early in the run.
Yeah, well, to say his bad run through pit lane was deliberate. It was a calculated move. He was just trying to go back further in the pack and save a little bit of fuel. So well done, Jason Brophy. It's all worked out for you, at least for the moment, but he hasn't come in yet. Here comes Steven Larkamp.
Trying to minimize the distance.
Yeah, minimize the distance. That's difficult sometimes, because if you're a little bit too harsh in the turn-in, that's an easy way to spin, but Larkamp does get it slowed down. Caleb Bensi earlier also had a little bit of a scary moment, but nobody's lost it on pit entry yet. It's a very, very tricky pit entry, though.
It is, and I'm a bit more surprised we haven't seen more drama outside of some of the insecurity, I'd say, about some of the closeness on drivers slowing down on the banking and not having migrated down onto the apron. So here's the front of the field. It is power slide, power slide, power slide. Private label team height, power slide, who continue to run around at the front. It is Phil Kraus that has managed to link up with the rest of his rivals, Justin, and well, sometimes your enemy becomes your friend.
Or your frenemy.
Frenemy, I like that.
But he knows which drivers are on his strategy and is saying, you know what? Likely coming down to us later on if it stays green. I'm staying with them. And that's the exact fact it looks like with Kraus here, doing a strong job doing that, trying to keep the gears as later as he can in terms of the shifts, a little bit slower down the straights with the fuel mapping. He's been amongst those, trying to match these drivers on strategy, thinking it might be these drivers in the driver's seat for strategy later on.
So we are still thinking that if we go green, we will get the potential for these drivers to eliminate a pit stop. Matt Taylor and Luke Daniels are trying to commit as well, but they are very much separated from this group. Van der Zant followed in by his teammate Tony Schowen, so they're in a lap early, and sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world, Joey, to split up slightly so that if there is drama on pit entry, you're not all caught in the fire.
You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, as they say. And you don't want to destroy everybody, so they are going to split these two packs, or this one pack into two here. I don't know if Malechka's going to come in this time. I have to imagine he is. Blocker's down to the bottom. He goes for the lead. But is he immediately going to relinquish that and come down? No, he's going to go out for one more. Malechka's going to go around for one more. Kraus is in. So it might be a little bit of an undercut, actually, for Van de Sant, Schoen, and Daniels on Blocker and Malechka. So they're staying out for 2 extra laps here.
They're on to lap 43. Remember, 44 is what we saw from them last time around. Front of the field for those that have already pitted. Let's check in with them. It's Chin, Harrington, Gruff, and Riggs, so no major surprise there in terms of drivers who ended up pitting quite early in the cycle. Alexander Van der Sant has managed to emerge in what I think is about net 7th position, so it's worked out a little bit better this time, I would argue, for those that have made the overcut work, JP, as Blocker and Malechka become the final cars to pit.
However, Adam Blocker, in sim black flag from speeding. He was well over the speed limit. And take Adam Blocker out of contention with that penalty.
And we'll ride on board and just see for the outgoing series champion how this race has come unstuck. Locked it up and was all crossed up deep into the pit lane. Still did not have the pit limiter on, by the way, and well, that's a painful way for a painful year to come to a close, Joey.
If it's any solace for him, there's still 160 laps to go. There's still over 300 miles left, so anything can happen. I'm not sure if he's going to go a lap down. He might still be able to stick to the tail end of the lead lap, but he is going to be in the box for the full penalty. I think he will actually go one lap down. So he'll join AJ Musselman down there at the back of the pack. And drivers who are desperately hoping for a caution, but it's all come undone for Adam Blocker, and that is... It happens so many times when you're the leader of the race. You're the first driver coming into the box. You've got no point of reference. It's just so easy to completely overcook it.
Blocker officially is now one lap down as he begins his roll. Musselman still 2 laps down, but from here you just fight back and see what you can do. Not even at the halfway mark of this race. So what was at one point a, I think, 15 or 16 car group is now a 14 car group with a 7.5 second separation to Andrew Kinsella, who continues to lead the second grouping of cars. And JP, you can see it's about half a straight that splits them now.
Yeah, the only 2 drivers they've lost are Blocker from Speedy and Alexis Newsom, who had a hard time getting into her box, lost about 7 seconds. So everybody that's in this lead group, they've done so by sticking together, no mistakes, strong execution, knowing these 2 are swap drafting, just staying towards that draft. If they feel like they have the pace, try and pick it up a bit. But for the most part, they've been racing respectfully, knowing there's a lot of time up on the board. The main driver who's trying to make charges, if anything, in the backdrop there you see Stephen Larkamp. That's about it so far in the patience mark for now early on in the rubbers.
So Joshua Chin, Connor Harrington, Tyler Groff, Caleb Bency, and Jason Brophy front of the field. Once again, let's just talk about movers and shakers. Those willing to dice a little bit more at the front. Riggs, Branch, double-digit gains for them. Michael Goodman as well, also plus 10. But most of the drivers where you see the minus numbers, Joey, are those drivers that are thinking about the pit stop windows and thinking about the fuel gains.
All about the ups and downs. It's all about making calculated decisions, and it's way too early to tell, honestly. There's so much that can change here in the next 300 miles about who's on the optimal strategy right now, whose strategy is going to work out at the end. I'm sure they've all got their spreadsheets. The drivers who have been extending their stints, like Alex Van de Sande, I'm sure he's thinking, I'm in the best place of anybody right now. I'm going to avoid a pit stop. But the second a caution comes out, the second the pit cycles get shaken up a little bit, that all goes out the window.
Still a long way to go here in the final round of the 2022 LIS Rd IndyCar Series. We're on the left coast of the USA for the Gomez Industries Race for the Championship, presented by JurisCandy.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on RaceSpot TV.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back along to the final round of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's a high-speed thriller at Fontana, California. The Gomez Sim Industries race for the championship presented by JuristCandy.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Delighted to be joined alongside in a special three-man commentary booth by the one and only Justin Prince, as well as Joey Tebbin. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading on over to racespot.tv/timing. JP, it's going to be a thriller from here, of course. We've gone caution-free so far this race. Still 15 cars involved in this leading group at the front of the field, and it's anyone's game in terms of fuel mileage as we run closer and closer to the halfway mark of the race.
Slowly but surely, we make our way towards halfway. Private label Team Hype dictating the tempo for much of this race so far tonight. But it's also the matter of, can this continue? Will this continue throughout the rest of the evening, especially with drivers looking to make charges? Tyler Kraft, for example, amongst those who was the most improved, one of the most improved in Speedway in the second half of this past season. He's looking hungry to try and make some slice and dices soon. There he goes.
There is the jink to the inside and trying to interrupt the swap back and forth. Joshua Chin will give him enough room, and Tyler Graff will try and run about the middle groove on the entry, slide his way down low, and what a turnaround from being the one who was crossed up down on the apron and sliding his way up the track. Tyler Graff has hit the front of the field with 100 laps in the books, Joey.
He's been the Barrett Rolfe of these late stages of the race. Barrett really stood out to us in the opening stages. He was pushing his way forward. Tyler Graff has been the spectacular driver of the night. As darkness has fallen on Auto Club Speedway, it is officially nighttime. I'm sure the track temps are getting even cooler, and if we do bring up the track temps, I will try and translate them into Fahrenheit, but I don't know if I can because I don't remember the formula, because I got a C- in Chem 1.
It is a complicated formula, but I mean it makes sense because Fahrenheit is also a complicated thing as well. It makes a lot more sense to use Celsius, where things freeze at 0 and boil at 100. It's 31 degrees Celsius for the record. It's not really changed much since we last talked about it, Joey.
That is kind of a surprise because the sun has gone down. It is nighttime, but we still do know that it will only get colder. It's only going to keep going down.
Well,
it might be a hot summer night in California. Yes, it is a hellish state on that side of the country. It does get hot all the time, so it might be a struggle in the nighttime.
You mean beautiful state, the Golden State as they call it. Now, I don't think we're going to get much cooler from here, to be honest, because usually the air temperature is the limiting factor here on iRacing. The track will only ever get as cool as the air is. However, we also don't tend to see, JP, the air temperature dropping too much. So maybe we've hit kind of a plateau from here where we're not going to really fall off a cliff, and we've hit a point of stability in many ways.
Yeah, it seems like the heat is holding up fairly well. After all, the in-sim date is May the 15th, 2022, so it doesn't seem to be dropping or plummeting like we've seen in some races in the past and even throughout the season. So far, track staying very hot, the car staying very lit as well.
Yeah, they were fighting 3 wide for a moment a couple of laps ago. There's the breakaway from the second pack, who are starting to actually coordinate a little bit once again here, because much like we saw in the previous cycle, Joey, we're going slowly at the front. There's no way to mince words about it. We've gone from doing 32.5s to 33.8s. They're playing fuel games. They're going 3 wide. No one wants to lead at the front once again.
Eventually, though, somebody's going to have to lead. Somebody is going to have to take that lead from Tyler Graff in the coming stints. Right now, I think Tyler Graff he's not happy to be the leader right now, but he is the driver who's just elected to say, you know what, I don't really care. I'm going to lead right now. I'm going to take this track position, and if a caution comes out, I'll be in a pretty good place. Might not work out in the long term, but somebody's got the leader. I'm going to let it be me. Mitchell Riggs is going to join him up there. It looks like Caleb Bensey is getting aggressive as well. But for the likes of Chin and Harrington and Van de Sant and Kraus, some of the drivers who we'd kind of expect to be in the winning positions coming to the end of the race, they're still hanging back.
It's a good sight from the flag booth, I tell you. Gap's down to 2.8. It's not going to be 14 anymore. It's going to end up being closer to 21. Give it a lap or so, JP, and my word, it's going to be a feisty 80 minutes that we've got in front of us here, because they're dicing it out like this now, and they're only going to get slower once there are more cars embroiled in the fight, I feel.
I think there's that possibility, absolutely, where they hold each other up a little bit with the more cars you have. In some of the test races, they were going 5 wide down the back stretch. In speedway competition with the DW12, they went 3 wide for about 20 laps straight before the final corner. It's all about the chess match to be able to position yourself right for that prime moment once you know you're good to go on gas. At this point, though, Robert Wetchka III is happy to see Jason Brophy drop to the back.
There's a friendly face alongside, I tell you what. Branch Van der Sant alongside as well. Now this car, of course, we said there's been no major updates to it recently, Joey, but that's because there's not much that needs updating. It is perhaps, in my opinion, at least on the road courses, definitely the best car that iRacing has to offer. Multiple tower compounds, new damage model, and it's one that produces some fantastic racing. Now the oval package is something that we could talk about ad nauseum. That's not such a thing, not such an issue with how the simulator is. That's more an issue with how the car races in the real world as well.
Yeah, that's been the tale of IndyCar for basically every single year since this new aero kit came in 2018. The road course racing has been incredible. It's been the best road course racing IndyCar has ever had. The ovals, places like Indianapolis and Pocono and Texas, which were previously guaranteed to be some of the best races on the IndyCar schedule, they've struggled a little bit. But in recent years, with the additions to the front wing, the new wickers, the new options, Indianapolis has been made good again. Texas, even with the stain, has been made pretty good with the practice they did with the tires up in the upper groove. So it is coming back. Hopefully it can do the same on iRacing as well.
Yeah, hopefully we move forward and we see some exciting things. Of course, recent news this past week that IndyCar dropping the plans for the 2.4-litre hybrid that I think many were quite excited for. Now, the hybrid itself is not being dropped. It's just being dropped into the 2.2-litre engine that we've been enjoying for quite a while now, and the hybrid units going to be developed with assistance by the manufacturers. Chevrolet and Honda going to be part of that process, rather than the Spec Marla unit that was in, it seems like, development hell, if I can use a software development term. But those 2.2-litre V6 engines may still get some life in them by virtue of tweaking and opening of the regulations moving forward. We'll have to wait and see, and maybe in the future we can talk about new engines alongside a new chassis. This chassis has been with us now for 10 full years. 14 is now 21 in the blink of an eye, JP.
Yep, absolutely. That pack closed up very quickly by about a second a lap because of how much they slowed up. And here's the thing, too. If they continue to slow down at the pace they are going, there's a chance that the third pack can get up there. If anything, there's a shot just about every car except for 2 can have a shot to be in the lead group by the end of the cycle. That's how slow they're running with the fuel burn.
Not abnormal, I guess, for a Lionheart race to become a fuel mileage game, but usually that happens because of cautions, not because of the fact that we go caution-free basically through the entirety of the first half of the race. But let's just take a look up above here at this fantastic facility. As I mentioned earlier, Joey, immortalized in this form on iRacing, because I believe this winter work will begin to convert the 2.5-mile track down to a little track.
It's like Schrodinger's racetrack. 1 second it's being demolished into a short track, another second it's staying as a 2-mile oval, then they say they're demolishing it again, then the track CEO says they're happy with the 2-mile oval. It's always a mystery what's actually going to happen to this track. I honestly won't believe they're turning it into a short track until the bulldozers are finally out there, but I will be disappointed. This place is very similar to Michigan, so it's not like we'll be losing this style of racing entirely, but this is a pretty interesting track in a part of the country that kind of needs a racetrack like this. Unfortunately, though, this track was built on the site of an old steel mill. It is a very big piece of real estate, and Arjuna, I think you and I both know that real estate in California does not come easy, and if you have real estate to sell, you're probably going to make a lot of money off of it.
Yes, but at the same time, I do wonder why real estate that far out of a major area is so valuable to the point where...
Warehouse time.
Yeah,
it's warehouse time.
We'll see. We'll see.
Just like with Nazareth.
Yeah, we'll see is all I'm saying. Again, this is the good thing that we have with iRacing, but it's not just about looking in the past, it's about looking forward now as well in so many ways, Justin, with iRacing's close collaboration with the team over at NASCAR. We've had the Chicago Street Circuit mapped out on iRacing and trialed before, planning anything further. Auto Club itself, the track development design process went through a virtual iteration as well, and it was all alongside the LA Coliseum, which was available on iRacing before they went racing earlier this year for the All-Star race.
Yeah, of course it's been talked about the partnership over the past year or so when it comes to NASCAR and iRacing to develop future racetracks. That happened, of course, with the Coliseum, as you talked about, happening with Auto Club. Atlanta was one of the tracks mentioned, for example, and it's a different way to potentially test out, will this track work for the real world, rather than having it built and then having to pay for a renovation, having to pay for another one. Texas Motor Speedway comes to mind with how many reconfigurations they had originally. In fact, if you look back to the original proposals, open wheel racing initially would have ran on what was essentially the apron with the temporary wall instead of the higher up banking before they declined to run that. So you have the chance to test things before actually spending the millions to build it.
Absolutely. Good point made in chat here by Jesper Orman. Joey, with Adam Blocker a lap down and a very likely possibility that we go caution-free from here to the end and Blocker does not get his lap back as Michael Goodman is down on pit lane. But Adam Blocker may just be his teammate's best friend here, sacrificing himself further to help his teammate save some fuel. More drivers taking to pit lane as the private label team hype duo pit alongside each other, Joey. Chin and Harrington down.
I guess fitting, the second we talk about Adam Blocker, we have to start thinking about drivers coming down pit lane, but both of them did get it slowed down. Chin a little bit better on the brakes, but pretty much dead equal between Chin and Harrington there, and that should kick everything off. I expect Tyler Graff to come in here reasonably soon because he has been our leader. He's been trying to run away from the rest of the field. Mitchell Riggs, Bency as well. Tony Schoen is one of the shortest running drivers on the track right now. He came in 30 laps ago, so he should be in a little bit later than everybody else, but the pit window is open once more, and with every single one of these stints, the pit window just seems to widen more and more.
Yeah, because I think they're trying to commit more and more to a fuel save that at the start they thought was questionable. If possible, I'm going to go back and just take a look at the numbers that I was told. So remember, we're talking about a full tank of these Dallara IR18s because we're a Triple Crown race rather than the regular season where they're limited to the 85% fuel capacity. What does that mean? 70 liters in the tank works out to about 18.5 gallons. If you're talking 37 laps in clean air, you need to do about 1.88 liters per lap or 4.02 miles per gallon. To get to 45 laps, JP, you need to do 1.51 liters per lap, or almost 5 miles per gallon.
And that's the thing with some of the drivers I'm noticing. They are in very difficult spots here. Especially the private label team hype drivers who have led the way around, I think you can say, because they've gone 40, 40, 40. But the way it's going, with how it's pushing, it's an extra stop situation with the fuel burn they're having, even with the swap drop. So they're in a very tough spot where they're going to need a caution here and might be 10 laps short, even with that pattern.
We'll have to wait and see, but only a handful of laps away from the halfway mark of this race. 2 more drivers will work their way down. Beard in that company of Riggs as well as Kite Bombers back. Still trying to just figure out and do the math to figure out exactly how the strategy is going to work out. I think I'm on the same page as Jesper Orman in our chat, where I'm still quite skeptical of how they're going to be able to make it work. I'm not skeptical, though, of how much they're fighting now. Larkamp in the middle of a 3-wide situation, Joey.
You better resolve that quickly, because all these drivers are going to need to pit very, very soon. You do not want to be the third driver on the outside trying to figure out how to come into pit lane, and then you've got like an eighth of a lap of fuel left, and then you're dead out of luck. You're just going to be dead out of fuel on the track. So everybody needs to single file their way out here. They have successfully done that for the most part. Phil Kraus is staying up top. He should be able to bring it down to the bottom soon. Larkamp all the way down on the bottom. I think that's a sign that he's going to come in. But look at the pack behind him. Things are going to get very, very dicey once these drivers start pitting. I think Caleb Bensey might be in. All right, good. Everybody managed to avoid him, but I think there might have been trouble for Larkamp coming in. No, he did save it. He's good.
Larkamp, Bensey, Hacker all in on lap 100. At the end of lap 125, we are officially halfway through the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by JewishCandy.com, the final of our Triple Crown races. Basically a coronation, of course, for Phil Kraus as he looks to build a house here alongside at Fontana and get some of that valuable real estate, but a long, long way to go as now Jason Brophy follows in Andrew Marquez in the Alcantech NHR Esports car, Joe Branch in the Powerslide Ignition sponsored by Catalyst 317 machine follows them in as well. Starting to look a little bit dark at times as well. The sun is well and truly below the horizon here, JP.
Yeah, it's just about entirely complete darkness outside of a little tinge of orange in the sky. So now that's where we'll have to see if the temperatures start to drop. In Fahrenheit, they are starting to drop track temp-wise slowly. Again, it's not going to be a rapidly freezing cold racetrack in the span of a couple moments. In Celsius, it's fine, though.
Micro adjustments. It's just a rounding error, basically, at least in Celsius right now. Newsom, Guyon, the two that have come down to pit lane this time by, as Adam Blocker is now not just towing around Alexander Robert Malechka, excuse me. He's also towing around Robert Malechka, Phil Kraus, Alexander Van der Sant, Tony Schowen, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, Joey. Blocker's race is basically already done. He can now work with his teammates to help them to the best of his abilities.
He can do that, but I'm still thinking it's a little bit early. We're just barely past halfway. There's so much that can change. I don't know if Adam Blocker's going to be ready to throw away his entire race yet. There's so much that can change. There's so many drivers that could be eliminated ahead of him. There's so many opportunities for potential wave arounds. I think it might be too early for him to completely commit to being second fiddle here, but for now, he can help his teammates out for a little bit, and then he can instantly come back to pit lane.
Well,
so he gave a little bit of help, but not for long.
He did have to run basically by himself for the entirety of the stint, so no help in the clean air, and now it will be Malechka and Van der Sant who will swap back and forth. Front of the grouping of those that have pitted, it is still Harrington, Riggs, and Graf, but Joshua Chin has dropped back, albeit slightly, into the midst of the top 10 in this gaggle, and, well, I think more significantly, it's put him in what I might term as the danger zone here, JP.
Yeah, the chance for attrition can come up absolutely. It can be difficult to slash your way through the pack in some moments if you don't pick it up right. On the bright side, when it comes to Chin's case, he does have Brophy to hook up with, which might be part of the goal.
They've got Kraus as well, still waiting for him to come down pit lane. Alexander Van der Sant followed in by Matt Taylor as they make their trip down to the safety of the pit lane, past the halfway mark of the race. As Tony Schowen already merging back out onto track, and again, the same thing has kind of developed here, Joey, where the undercut maybe not working as well to build some separation. It's basically a constant pack at this point as, well, Phil Kraus becomes the penultimate car down on the lane.
It's going to be almost impossible to get any real sort of separation here. Maybe if two teammates elect to work together and we have some sort of harebrained strategy where we get a 7, 8, 9, 10 lap undercut, there might be a little bit of separation, enough separation to break two drivers away from the rest of the pack, but I can't see any reason for that to happen. I think right now, with the caution freeness of this race so far, which is a word, I don't think there's going to be any trouble.
Well, we've got a bit of a shake-up here.
Oh, Kraus has a penalty.
Kraus has got a penalty, but Alexander Van der Sant is in the catbird seat right now. 2.2 seconds clear of Connor Harrington and the pack behind, with his teammate to work with, and with Malechka ready to leave pit lane and maybe make it a trio at the front of the field. Justin Prince, is this in the hands of Powerslide Motorsports?
It's definitely helping them a little bit. Blocker going to be synced up just about strategy-wise to work with here. I'm surprised at how big the advantage is here, to say the very least. Malechka third, who is right with Van der Sant, not even going to get a big advantage. So Van der Sant must have absolutely nailed that pit entry to gain some time to be able to build up this buffer, albeit it's still a couple seconds.
And this is dangerous right now because Malechka is the bridge between Van der Sant and the group behind. He's within drafting distance of the race leader. He's within drafting distance of those behind, Joey. I don't know what decision I'd rather make. Do I want to get back to the lead, or will I let my teammates run away and drop backwards? He's making the decision to drop backwards.
I mean, he has to join this pack. He doesn't really have a choice. He can't just, hit the throttle a little bit harder, movie style, and make his way up to Alex Van der Sant. He basically is forced to work with the pack behind, to catch up with Harrington, to bring Graf in, Riggs, Kite Bomber's back, Barrett Rolfe, who's somehow back in the conversation. There's going to be quite a big pack formed up here, and I think they will be able to build up enough speed to bring that gap down to Van der Sant. You can already see on this lap, Malechka was half a second faster than Van der Sant. Him and Blocker, they were in the catbird seat for about a lap, and I think that's going to be over very soon.
Yeah, now Blocker, I think, is in that difficult situation of saying, you know what, all right, let me get out of the way and not interfere with this one at all. They'll go 3 wide down the back for a moment as Tyler Graf tries to take advantage to slip on past Connor Harrington. He's going to be unable to do so. Heading into what might be the final 60 minutes of the season for these drivers. And once again, even though Van der Sant is 1.5 clear, expecting that to close back up, and then expecting 22 cars, Justin Prince, to be fighting for the final win and the final checkered flag of the year.
I don't think I expected 22 cars to be in the main pack by this point, even with 500 miles to consider. We've seen in Speedway, drivers end up getting to smaller packs by this point and having a hard time to close up, but we've seen with the different chassis, these drivers just staying tucked together. Again, the decision of, do I lead? Do I save fuel? All come into play. Harrington saying, you know what, let's build the bridge. Let's completely have the bridge complete in the next minute or so. He just went full tilt to close the gap.
He's going to bring the rest with him eventually, and I think it's not going to intensify until we get to the very end, because of course there are still the fuel games to be played, and that's exactly I think what Malechka has in mind as he drops outside of the top 15, and I think we'll just slot backwards. He's the one that is the furthest in the fuel saving game. The difference between him and Connor Harrington, one of the first cars to come down pit lane, Joey, is 14 laps.
It's expanding and expanding and expanding with every single stop, and I'm doing the math again in my head. If you're doing 40 laps on a stint, that means that you're guaranteed to have a 10-lap run to the end, because you're going to do 6 40-lap stints and then a 10-lap run to the end. If Malechka has saved 14 laps of fuel, that's that 10-lap stint gone. He might have just eliminated that last splash and dash when some of the other drivers haven't been able to.
Praying that the caution does not fly. I think that's what everyone cheering on the 91 will be hoping. Harrington back at the front, linked up with Alexander Van der Sant. Gap has not been bridged just yet, but within touching distance. Not too much drama to really be looking at. Now, I mentioned this is the traditional season finale, JP, but when it is the traditional season finale, it's not always at the same race distance. It's been 250 miles a couple of times, 300 a couple of times as well. It's only been in the last 3 years that we've ramped that up to 500 miles to close out the year.
And remember, when it comes to a long distance like this, you have to be able to have time to prepare, but also time to plan out to be able to complete all of the mileage in the race. Of course, on the Sunday, for example, for the longer distance races throughout the campaign, which allows that more flexibility. instead of, say, racing till 1 or 2 in the morning. But I will say this when it comes to that, it's a different breed for a full mileage race compared to a 250-miler. And while it's still a lot of laps and miles in the top of your head, the thing is when it comes to that, Arjuna, you have more time to make up for mistakes, more time to plan things out, more time to cut through the pack at a full distance compared to a half distance.
Absolutely. Slightly different, given that full distance in this sort of a context just means that you spend more time bunched up with one another, but especially pertinent given some of the racing that we have seen over the course of this year. I think back to the likes of Nashville, for example, where tires were a much more significant factor. I did also touch on it at the start of the event when we were talking about our Gomez Sim Industry Series details, but today is the final day that if the drivers of this Lionheart IndyCar Series have a problem with the setups that are being used in this fixed setup competition, Joey, that they can complain to RaceSpot's own Andrew Kinsella, because after a couple of years of building 60-plus setups a year, he'll be stepping back from those responsibilities and hopefully trying to race a little bit more.
I want every single driver in this field, all 27 of them, not named Andrew Kinsella. I want the 3 people in the commentary booth, and I want every single person watching on YouTube right now. You should all submit some complaints to Andrew Kinsella. Just make him do as much work as possible. Give him a full sheet of complaints to deal with, and that'll be the perfect way to send that journey off.
I'm just trying to remember, does he have a Twitter account? Apparently I don't follow
Yes.
it. Oh, he does? What's his Twitter?
I keep forgetting it.
I think it's like @Kinsella_14 or something like that. So
It's close to that.
yeah, direct your complaints
I'll find it.
directly to there. Kinsella, after qualifying, at least up inside the top 10, dropped back. Now working his way back up through the grid.
Kinsella 14.
I was close enough. I was an underscore away. So
Just spam him.
So I'll take pride in that. Jason Brophy, Tyler Graf alongside with Adam Blocker trying to cut back low. Blocker, of course, will want to keep himself around the front of this group, Justin, so that he can potentially try and get his lap back and get back into the mix. He's fighting with Phil Krause as well. Another driver, 1 lap down after his own speeding penalty.
Yeah, he's going to have to pay attention to that, absolutely. And that makes things a little bit even more nerve-wracking if you're a lead lap driver, knowing you've got lap cars fighting for position, because then you have the battle within the battle within the battle, so to speak. So you need to be able to plan that out properly and know what's going to end up happening. That can be tricky even when it's the midst of lap traffic. Even more tricky when it's 2 of your top drivers in the series history.
Let's take a look at, by the way, exactly what happened to Phil Krause as he rolled off the banking. Just didn't roll enough speed. Didn't have himself crossed up as much as some of the other pit penalties that we've seen so far today, but Phil Krause's season unlikely to end with a podium, but we've seen him come from the back to the front before. He's got to come from 1 lap down with half the race still left to go, actually closing in on about 100 laps to go. About 200 miles still left in this season as Jason Brophy and Phil Krause will swap around, and I'm sure there's plenty of chit-chat going on in the voice chat of the private label Team Hype. We mentioned some new content this past week, but if anyone's a Formula One fan, Joey, they can go and try out a Mercedes W13. I don't know if you get the full effect though, because unfortunately iRacing is not going to porpoise you in your sim rig.
Oh, you can porpoise. There have been setups made where you can do all the porpoising you've ever wanted in the W13.
Yes, but it won't porpoise you.
Maybe with the power of the butt kicker, you can experience the porpoising. But I have driven it a couple times this week. I drove it at Suzuka. I drove it at Catalunya. It is a far, far more difficult experience than the W12. In the W12. Oh dear.
It is going to be Jason Brophy in the Grello private label Team Hype car, but down on the infield, we might stay caution-free here. Brophy will spin it around and get it back up to speed, but just talking about the chances for him to work forward with Philip Krause, well, they come to a close in the blink of an eye.
I heard right on the radio, Van de Sant was saying he thought he was clear. So that might have been the incident of the spotter. Yeah.
No, you're right. straight to the RaceSpot TV replay machine, and yellow flag is out, the first one of the day. It changes the mix, and well, there's the chop down from Van der Zandt. I don't think it gets much more blatant than that, but I'm not sure why the caution has come out.
I think it was
Brophy lose
Brophy. It was Brophy coming up on the racetrack, guys.
So it was a very late caution in the timing of it. But now, throw those fuel games out and shake up your expectations. 45 laps is the fuel window or so, and we're in for about a 100-lap shootout potentially here, Joey.
Yeah, you say fuel games are out the window, but now we have more interesting fuel games to play with. It's going to be a very, very, very difficult job to extend 10 extra laps to be able to do what will likely be 90 laps to the end. You're going to need to be able to stretch to lap number 45. That's going to be a very, very difficult task, but everybody's going to be going for it. Some drivers might just decide to push flat out the second we go green again and just take the L, take that splash and dash at the end, but there's going to be a lot of drivers saving.
Plenty of drama now still left in this one, and Justin Prince. It all started with Alexander Van der Zandt's little brush and dart down inside that claimed Jason Brophy.
Yeah, and essentially remember that you see that with the tire, just Van der Zandt thought he had the command of being clear. Brophy gets slid all the way into the grass. Ends up taking him the full lap to get out of the grass. You see Van der Zandt again, just trying to fall down to the bottom line for the draft. Didn't realize he was down there, and down he goes.
See if we can.
Now, I'm interested to see what happens after that when he's trying to get back on the track.
Yeah.
He's on the grass, the transition onto the asphalt.
Oh, that! Oh my days!
Because it was right in front of the field.
Well, to be fair, that caution flag should have come out a lot earlier there, thanks to the iRacing system.
Yeah, he had spun out at least twice in the grass, Arjun, to try to get out of it.
So that makes a lot more sense if we're being honest. Now the field, of course, will streak their way down towards pit lane. Who wins the exit off of pit road? Connor Harrington has a great spot. He'll lead. Tyler Graf, Mitchell Riggs, Kite Bombers back, and Barrett Rolfe. 3 Ascari Autosport machines up inside of what will be the net top 5 with Benzie, Schau, and Van der Zandt, Kinsella, and Larkamp the rest of the net top 10. Matt Houston electing to stay out there, trying to get a bonus point for leading a lap, JP.
He's done that throughout the campaign, and of course Blocker and Kraus trying to take the wave. They're going to need to hope for some luck. They were about halfway through the fuel run. But the fuel numbers are going to be a little bit wild, because by the time we get green, we're talking still more realistically a 2-stop, but even then, the second stop in some cases might be with under 10 to go if it stays green. That's the big if.
One thing to consider for Alexander Van der Zandt. Race Control will take a look. He may get a penalty for his involvement in the incident. Jason Brophy back out on track. 1 retirement from the race. It's only 1. It's the muscle man, unfortunately, who went 2 laps down early. And we will now have Phil Kraus, I think, also getting back onto the lead lap. Although, albeit, Blocker and Kraus will be slightly offset. We'll still pit as many times as the rest of the field. But Joey, they are going to go straight back down to 1. They're going to go straight back 1 lap down in about 15 laps time.
I'm trying to do the math in my head again. I'm thinking. So we're going to go green again on about lap 155, lap 156. Blocker and Kraus have only done about 20 laps on each stint there. So they've both got potentially 15 to 20 more laps on a stint. That'll take them to around lap number 170. It is still going to be the same amount of stops, but it's going to be some sort of weird alternate pit strategy, and they're going to be pitting earlier than the rest of the field every time, so they might be able to pull some sort of an undercut.
So the lights are off on the pace car. We're getting ready to go back racing with less than 100 laps to go as we race our way to the final trip to HyperX victory lane of the season, Justin Prince. And what a crazy season it has been. And well, Phil Kraus is back now on the lead lap and with a chance of getting his streak of podiums through the year of 2022.
So is Blocker, but they're going to need a lot of luck and a lot of craziness to happen. Here's the question: how willing are some of these drivers going to be able to slice and dice? as this restart happens after getting the chance to bunch up.
It's been 150 laps of thrills and spills, but our first caution of the night slows us down. We're ready to go once again in the Gomez Sim Industries race for the championship presented by JurasCandy.com. The night sings once more with the roar of Dallara IR18s. Alexander Van der Sande gets a penalty for his part in the incident. He's down on pit lane. The rest of the cars have built the speed back up, and now they'll start to figure out what the fuel number they need to hit is and what they need to do to position themselves to get the checkered flag at the end of the race, Justin.
And that's going to be the nervous thing. Who's going to want to lead? Who's going to want to try and save? There's a bit more separation compared to, well, much of the race with the single file restart. But these three, Harrington, Graf, and especially Riggs, want to go.
Mitchell Riggs searches to the outside and makes it 3 wide for a moment. Connor Harrington will pick up the point, but going back to the point, Joey, the more that you're at the front, the longer you'll fill up in the final pit stop of the race. 3 wide once more.
It is all out of the window now. This is going to be what we're going to see, I think, for the next 85 laps of this race. There's not going to be any... There's going to be some fuel saving, but this is the kind of insanity I'm ready to see. 3 wide all the time. Everybody wants to lead this race. Everybody wants to fight as hard as possible for this track position. That was 3 wide through 3 and 4, 3 wide through 1. They've straightened it out for now, but look for Tyler Graf to send it 3 wide again coming in turn 3.
I don't feel like we're going to ratchet down the intensity at the front, but it is those that sit behind that I think are going to be a little bit wiser and setting themselves up for the final 5 laps when it's really going to count. Now, there are some bonus points in the championship, Justin, for leading laps for everyone who is able to lead laps. Bonus points are doubled for those in close championship fights up and down through the field. They will be thinking about making sure they take full advantage of the situation, as Alexander Van der Sande will see the field catching him and looking to put him 1 lap down.
Chance to be able to pick up at least 2 more points to close out the year. Remember, 2 points if you have no incident point throughout the race as well. But look who's coming forward. Andrew Kinsella, who dropped as far back as the 20s to start the race. He's now in full tilt mode, watching this and saying, I want to join the fun too.
Laid back after qualifying decently, he's forward through the field. 3 wide as they ramp off of turn 2 once more through the middle. Michael Goodman on series debut has bided his time, and now up into 9, a veteran of Lionheart competition, steps up to the top level of Lionheart competition and now looks to put on a show as he works his way forward. He's alongside with the feisty Barrett Rolfe, who's back in the mix after the damage he got earlier, Joey.
How incredible is that Barrett Rolfe is back in the mix up front? I know this is a race sponsored by Dewar's Soda Fountain and Ice Cream Shop, but it has been quite a rocky road for Barrett Rolfe.
Ooh, nice.
He's found himself in the top 9, though, and if the people at Dewar's are listening, please send me a pint of Rocky Road. Thank you.
Joey Punny Tebben in the commentary booth for this final round of the championship. Going to be 91 laps to go this time by. Harrington from Graf, from Riggs, Kinsella, and Bensi, the top 5. Now, all 5 of these drivers, JP, searching for their either first win of 2022, or in many cases, their first win of their Lionheart IndyCar Series career.
And a lot of these drivers in a really good spot for that. We're right now seeing a lot of snaking, though. Near blocking to the inside, Connor Harrington not wanting to let the bottom open for Riggs again.
It's quite early to be snaking back and forth, Joey.
It's never too early to be snaking back and forth, apparently, but that's the craziness we've been seeing. We've been seeing the 3 wide, we've been seeing the snakes. We're going to be seeing this for the next 90 laps. Everybody is racing like it's the final lap. Tyler Graf retakes the lead on the bottom. Harrington's going to try and fight back on the outside. It looks like Graf might be a little bit too aggressive right now. He's been going for these crazy moves. Mitchell Riggs tries to go 3 wide. The door's just barely open. He is going to be able to send it 3 wide, but Graf's still going to be clear.
There wasn't a gap there when he looked to find the hole. He forced it open. Jason Brophy also looking to take it 3 wide as he's 1 lap down, of course. Here comes Caleb Bensi around the outside with a whole heap of momentum. 3 wide, once more at the front. And Justin, I don't know how we're going to get to the end of this race with our voices still intact.
Well, it's also about can these drivers keep their cars intact with the way they're racing up here. Harrington's racing fairly aggressive. Riggs absolutely fairly aggressive. Graf is turning down a touch bit. Kinsella wanting to be at least in the popcorn seat when it goes off. A couple drivers just about clocked the wall. Tony Shallen just scraped a little bit of the side pod.
Starting to feel a little bit more nervous for the first time today, Joey. I felt rather confident that we would get through this race caution-free. I think we're going to have a moral caution-free race, given the circumstances surrounding the safety car popping back out onto track. Now I start to worry, though, that cautions do breed cautions.
We say it because it's true, and we almost saw a caution come out in the previous lap with Kinsella and Brophy side by side down the back straight. Kinsella, I think, realized at the last second that they were on a collision course. He swerved away. They managed to get away with it, but 3 wide is attainable. 3 wide is doable. The second you start going 4 wide, you can't really get away with those jerks and those jitters because they result in a massive wreck and they result in wiping out half of the field. So if we do end up going 4 wide, that's when I'm going to get even more scared, if that's even possible.
Maybe towards the final laps of the race. Remember, this is the site of the 5th closest finish in series history. 14 thousandths of a second split Adam Blocker from Dan Gearan back in Season 7 when Blocker ran across the line to grab the victory. The closest margin of victory, it should be pointed out, JP, 1,000th of a second. That was all the way back in Season 1 at Indianapolis.
A long time ago, yes, but we've seen very close finishes as we talked about at the top of the show here. This track and this race, with the way it's going, might be similar to what we've seen in Speedway. Down to the potential of the front wing, down to the potential of a blade on the front wing. But you never know with how this race could go fair out. Harrington really squeezing Riggs down to the bottom, trying to get him to check up. Not doing.
And now they're doing what I like to dub as the data downloading. They're understanding how each of their competitors' races, how they need to position themselves in the final stages of the race. But at the end of the day, Joey, as much as you'll try and think about what you're doing, when you're in those situations, it's eat or be eaten, and you make your judgments without much time to really think about them.
So many software references tonight, Archie. So many software references.
Well, you showed up with the puns, so I thought I should break out at least something I'm good at.
Maybe we'll have to call the draft snake the Python.
Mitchell Riggs almost getting together with Jason Brophy, who is being aggressive about getting back to the front and almost chops the nose of Mitchell Riggs. 3 wide for the lead with traffic danger to deal with at the front. Riggs almost slides up the path into Brophy there, Joey.
Brophy wants that lead lap position back because if caution does come out, he gets his spot in the lead lap back, but he also does not want to be the caution. He's also probably nursing a little bit of damage. It wasn't the hardest hit in the world to the inside wall when that caution did come out, but it was still a pretty hard hit. I don't think that car is going to be at 100% health right now. He is back on the lead lap, though. How long can he stay there, though? I don't know. He's hoping that the caution comes out, and he's hoping that he's not involved in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you definitely don't want to be involved with it when you are now the last car on the leading lap. Connor Harrington might be able to coordinate and communicate with Jason Brophy to be able to get some toe, to be able to control the lead of this race a little bit more than anyone else has been able to do so far. Harrington ducks underneath his teammate, and now Brophy back 1 lap down, but in terms of the queue at the front, it's teammates in control, Joey.
Tyler Graf peeks to the inside of Brophy, elects not to go for that because Brophy was absolutely committed to the bottom there. You're going to have a hard time passing Jason Brophy. I'm sure everybody in this lead pack is probably pretty unhappy with him because he's not racing for the win right now, but at the same time he's racing for his own survival. He wants to stay on the lead lap so badly here. In the process, though, His teammate Connor Harrington's probably not too happy with him. Tyler Graff is definitely not happy right now. Mitchell Riggs is not happy right now. It's just another car that they don't want to fight with.
Where would you want to be right now, Justin, if you were trying to place yourself as a driver?
Where would I want to be right now? Knowing there's the swap drop with the private label team hype machines, at the very least, at this point, get me around the top 8, get me in the conversation in the closing stages towards the final fuel run of the minimum. But at the very least, be in the same time within drafting range still of who the lead grouping is, knowing private label team hype has hooked up again.
Here's Phil Kraus in the heart of the pack, by the way, back into the top 10. Still owes us a pit stop. He's on to lap 40 of his run, and the blocker has gone on to lap 43. He is back in 15th. No pit stop just yet because, of course, those lap numbers, Justin, will include the laps that we had under caution.
That's going to be a bit of a tough thing. Adam Blocker, for reference, just called for the pit stop this upcoming time by, so they are close, if not already, at the pit stop mileage at this point. Kraus just doesn't seem to have the space. Now he's wanting space to pit from the top.
And I do think you'll see Blocker and Kraus try and work together a little bit here because, Joey, they are the only two that are on the same strategy here. And they'll do what they can to make their lives at least a little bit more pleasant as they've got some company coming with them.
Josh Chin joins them. That's interesting. That's another teammate from private label Team Hype who's going to try and help out Philip Kraus. There's an alternate strategy, but it is the same amount of pit stops that these guys need to make that everybody else on the lead lap needs to make. It's just a question of whether this undercut, this accidental undercut that Kraus and Blocker are going to have to do is going to work out. Clearly, Josh Chin thinks it will.
So Josh Chin also, I think, just hoping that track position maybe working all right. Maybe for the first time, the undercut working as well. Adam Blocker, the last to drop and roll, but he also will have needed the most fuel just by virtue of being out there the longest. They will get back up to speed and they will hope to be able to funnel in and to fall into line. Front of the field, so Harrington, Graf, Reeks, Kinsella, now Tony Showen getting into the mix as well as he works his way forward in the distinctive white, yellow and red colors on his Dallara IR18, Justin.
Able to complete the slide as well on Bensi. He's had a pretty solid season. Not the best of luck, though, in terms of staying clean in some of the incidents we've seen at times throughout the campaign. But when he can get himself staying out of the trouble, you see the results. He usually finds his way around this point towards money time and point time.
They're starting to get a little bit more feisty once again. 75, the number to go. Luke Daniels, Alex Guyon, they're going to swap around for 20th position. These are a handful of drivers that, of course, got linked back up through the long green flag cycle, Joey, because we were playing games at the front, and our lap times went from 32.5s to 33.5s and allowed what was once a 14-car train to become a 21-car train.
I think everybody on the lead lap right now, they're going for 16, 17 more laps. So it'll take them to about lap 190 or so. And then the question is going to be after that, what do you do? Do you split the second stint into two equal pieces? Do you go 30 and 30? Do you go 35 and 25? How do you split that up? Which stint do you want to be the longest? That caution came out at the perfect time, honestly, because even though the strategies are going to be the same number-wise, everybody's going to have to do 2 stops. There's so much room for interpretation.
A 500-mile high-speed thriller, a high-stakes thriller to close out the season. Still 75-odd laps to go. We're racing closer and closer to the end of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Don't go anywhere on RaceSpot TV. We'll be right back with a run to the checkered flag in the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by DeWittsCandy.com.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to the Lionheart IndyCar Series season finale, live under the lights at the Auto Club Speedway. We're racing towards the checkered flag for the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by DurasCandy.com. Still a couple of pit stops left to go. Connor Harrington has started the cycle for a handful of the drivers, but what a race it has been so far. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to have been joined alongside with Justin Prince and Joey Tebbin for the thriller so far, but it's going to be the action to the checkered flag, Justin Prince, that ends what has been a dramatic and an entertaining Lionheart IndyCar Series for 2022.
It has absolutely been a wild campaign with many different fights, especially in the fight to try and beat Phil Kraus in many of these races. And right now, the different strategies also come into play. The tough thing is, how about going near 4 wide with traffic?
Yeah, Andrew Kinsella deciding that, well, maybe there wasn't a hole for me to go through. Barrett Rolfe learnt that lesson the hard way, unfortunately, slightly earlier in the night. But I did say that we were going to see 4, we may see 5 wide, and, well, Joey, 3 wide now the norm at the front of the field. Jason Brophy, a lapped car in the middle of the sandwich.
Both Brophy and Van de Sande is desperately trying to stay on the lead lap here, but it is becoming incredibly difficult because Tyler Graff is as aggressive as anybody up here. Kinsella has decided to turn up the wick later on in the run here. He was the driver who almost sent it 3 wide to turn 1 on the previous lap. He's going to take the lead of the race here, even though he is third in line for a moment. It's a very, very interesting battle here because Van de Sande and Brophy are just going to run side by side here. They're going to try and be a roadblock to hold both of them on the lead lap. And everybody else is just going to have to try and fight for third, which is actually the lead, which is slightly confusing for all of them.
Just a little bit, but it does help, I think, in the fuel numbers game. As one by one we pick off drivers onto pit road. It's Barrett Rolfe on his return for the final round of the championship that ducks his way onto pit lane. But with 64 laps to go, Justin, we'd expect him to come in at least with 20 laps to go, if not 25 to go. Drivers will be hoping to get as close to 45 as feasibly possible.
Absolutely, especially with the ability to take less fuel and save some time in the pit lane, a couple seconds. It looks like several drivers, they'll want to come in right now, split the race in even goings to make it to the end on fuel instead, and go for a little bit more fuel in the tank compared to trying to put in the least amount.
So Andrew Kinsella will be down onto the pit lane along with Tyler Graff, Luke Daniels, Trevor Malone. See exactly how it fares out for them. Jason Brophy and Alexander Van de Sande, of course, came together to bring out the caution. Brophy took the brunt of the impact and lost a lap. Alexander Van de Sande got a penalty for the incident, and that's why he is trying to hold on to his spot. More cars down to pit lane. Matt Taylor, Caleb Bensi, and Mitchell Riggs among them, I think, that have made their way this time down onto the lane. But still, I think, Joey, even though you might want to split it up as much as possible, the ideal situation is just to spend as little time in pit lane as possible, which means, I think, running this dry and taking advantage of the tow in front.
It's just such a balancing act you have to do here because we've seen the undercut be somewhat effective tonight. Not necessarily because of tire wear or anything, but it's just been getting out of this dirty air, running your own laps. We've seen the undercut be effective, but it's all a trade-off. If you do the undercut, if you do take the lead, you're not getting out of the pack anyway. You put yourself at risk of getting swallowed up by the 17 other drivers behind you. It is just such a difficult decision to make, and frankly, I think the best decision to make if you are a driver on the lead lap here, if you are Tony Schowen, if you're Malechka, if you're Marquez, if you're any of the leaders, come in with each other. You don't need to do an alternate strategy necessarily, you just need to have some buddies.
See exactly how non-teammates work together. Van de Sande and Brophy will confirm their status as one lap down by coming down to pit lane. It was Robert Malechka, the most impressive of the fuel savers over the course of that long green flag run that we had, JP, but unfortunately the race may have come to an end for poor Andrew Kinsella with a little bit of a half spin as he tried to exit pit lane.
Blue cone violation, crossing the blend line essentially, and that is another lengthy penalty that absolutely will take Kinsella out of contention with a 40-second stop and hold at least a 1 to 2 lap penalty as a result. It can be tricky on these pit exits now that the track's getting fairly slick and a lot of marbles down there. So you better be careful that pit exit now. And side by side, not a good thing you've just seen. Here's Kinsella's situation. Too much speed, slides up, nearly loops it.
Yeah, and it was just it was racing Tyler Graf off a pit exit, and I think maybe just the urgency clouding the judgment there of a very experienced IndyCar driver, someone, of course, that has finished second in the iRacing Indianapolis 500 going back to 2018, Joey.
We've all made that exact mistake. I can guarantee you I've made that mistake many, many times, and when you're behind
more than
drivers,
others.
Some more than others, especially like me, but it is difficult because, you know, you wouldn't really think you're in the dirty air necessarily, but on that pit exit, you are in a little bit of dirty air there when you're not in your own, and that can lead to a little bit of understeer and, of course, the impatience there. That's what really gets you. But I can't make fun of Andrew Kinsella because I can guarantee you if I was in this race, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. Yeah,
I was just trying to open the opportunity to poke fun at either Jason Brophy or Joshua Chin, basically anyone in the private label Team Hype stable who has had issues on pit lane over the years. Malechka and Newsom are the two not to pit. Maybe not a surprise given their history in the Lionheart Speedway Series, Justin Prince. However, Marquez, Branch, Taylor, Guyon, Beard, Sexton, the rest of the field pits on this lap as we wait for two final contenders to make pit stops.
Malechka the third to Newsom. Teammates last year in Speedway competition. A little bit hotter for Newsom on the entry in terms of speed, I should say. But for the most part, the cycle's complete, and now it gets interesting. Because I was going to say, when it came to those drivers with the wave rounds, I didn't hate the timing of the pit stop because it would be the equal amount. The tough thing is making sure they don't run out of gas towards the final stages of this race. They're in a good spot here with the gap 4 seconds over everybody else.
They are going to have to do a lap or two of fuel saving, but it's not terrible. It's about as ideal as it could have gotten, but to be completely honest, everyone's got a cycle of pit stops left. There'll be a slightly longer cycle of pit stop for Blocker and Kraus. Blocker, Chin, and Kraus. However, the benefit, Joey, is that everyone's going to be limited in the pit lane by how much time it takes to change tires rather than how much fuel they're putting in the car. And I don't suspect that given how late some of these drivers are pitted, are you really going to gamble and not take tires with 16 or so laps to go at the end of this race?
You've got to take tires. That's not a gamble worth taking. You're going to get swallowed up immediately. This track, in terms of all IndyCar ovals at this length, this track does, I think, tear up the tires a little bit more than a place like Michigan, than the super speedways, for example. You don't want to change tires there, but here, I think you absolutely need to take those tires. That gamble would not be worth it, and you'd be regretting it the second you left the pits, because those tires would be struggling.
Another driver has fallen foul of the tricky pit entry that we do have here, Justin Prince, and this time it is Kite Bomber's back that bombs his way down onto the pit lane.
He's lucky he didn't hit the wall. He even wiggles the wheel like, oh boy. But yeah, take Bomber's back out of contention. He's had a very quiet night. Here's the view.
So he ramps off the banking, just overly optimistic, and once again he locks it up, and yes, lucky he doesn't slide his way in towards that attenuator. NC starting to slip backwards momentarily as they're 3 wide once again, and the intensity is built up as expected. Working to 50 laps to go. The car will have changed significantly. What you need to do with your in-car adjustments, Joey, has therefore changed as well, and the best drivers will already have figured that out. 4 drivers at the front with a 3.5 second advantage, and maybe a very good chance of using the strategy to their benefit.
I think those are going to be your 4. The fact that there's 3 private label Team Hype drivers together really sells that. Adam Blocker is kind of the odd one out here, but all 4 of those drivers, with that 3.5 second gap they have right now, they're going to have to do a little bit longer of a run coming to the end, but I think there's still very much in the best possible place here, and as long as the 3 private label team hype drivers can get it slowed down on pit lane, that 3.5 second gap should stay.
It's a big if, at least in the case of Joshua Chin. Phil Krause's issue back in the month of May was more on the pit exit than anything, so we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for bringing these things up. But I just blame Joshua Chin for not setting his alarm yesterday and not waking up for VCR Pro Sim Infinity. It's as simple as that.
It's the butterfly effect.
Exactly. 199 laps in the books. Make that 200 next time by. 400 miles complete. The final 100 miles to go. At one point, we thought we were going to get through this caution-free. And Justin Prince, I still maintain that we have a moral caution-free race, at least so far.
I still don't understand what you mean by that.
I mean that didn't have to be a caution. That could have been different.
Yeah, you're correct on that, absolutely. But there's still plenty of time to bring out a caution.
Yes, no, I'm trying not to think about that, and I'm trying not to bring my commentator's curse with me.
We're questioning the morality of cautions here. This is like a philosophical debate.
I know.
Call the universities.
It wasn't an Alexander Van der Sant caution, that's for sure.
By the way, this entire pack we're looking at is starting to finally close. They were losing ground, then the lap traffic started to settle down, and now they've trimmed down about a second and a half nearly in the past 5 laps.
Not sure if it's fall off, but 33-0 for Harrington last time by. 32-5 for Riggs last time by. He was tucked up behind now 3 lapped cars. It's Brophy, Van der Sant, and Kinsella, all basically fighting to be the driver finishing in 23rd at the end of this, JP.
Yeah, and I think that's what initially held everyone back a little bit after they sorted each other out with the pit stops. They're on a bit of the older rubber as well. But for the most part, everybody's now starting to work together, settle on in. Firestones have started to get some heat into them, and the focus is straight up simple. Get up to the top 4. They are now in draft range, just about.
Yeah, just about, especially bridged by the 3 lapped contenders as well. There's a car all the way up to the wall. A little bit early to be taking risks like that, but Matt Taylor embroiled with a fight with the likes of Barrett Robb, Tony Showen, and Joe Branch. All still trying to figure things out. Haven't seen too much 4 wide at the line though yet, Joey. The 4 wide that we have seen is basically on the entries into turns 1 and turns 3.
Well, that's where it gets scarier, because that's when you really need to have things figured out. That's when the dirty air is really affecting you. You can go 3 and 4 wide down the front and back straight all you want. You'll figure it out. But once you actually remember that, oh, this is a racetrack, we kind of have to turn here, that's when things get a little bit more dicey. The 4 up front, they're not going 4 wide, but you know what has been completely erased? It's that gap that these top 4 had to the rest of the field. It's gone. It's a 12-car pack now, 13-car pack now.
The choo-choo train has joined the fun. And good point thrown up here for the likes of Adam Blocker and Phil Krause. 2 drivers that were 1 lap down about halfway through this race, Justin. They've done a great job of not giving up and fighting their way back into contention.
It took some lucky breaks. The caution absolutely helped them, remember. But now this is the tough part. This is a major test for later on in this race to see how things will play out, because it could be a big difference on the tires after the final stops of the race. Bensy charging forward, Riggs charging forward. You already see how big the gap is. Already more than a second behind the top 2 already because of the battling with Krause and Chin.
45 to go. We're into that magic window where you could save enough to get to the end if you really wanted to. Not mean you're going to be that fast. 40 to go. That will be the magic number. It's going to be right around where we think Blocker, Chin, as well as Phil Krause will likely dance their way down onto the pit lane for the final time today. Blocker and Krause have already made 1 mistake on pit entry. They can't afford another this time, Joey, and surely that weighs in the back of their mind, the fact that they've already fallen afoul of it once.
I can guarantee you it is, and it's easy to get stuck in your own mind that way. You think, can I just back up the pit entry a little bit more? Can I get a little bit more aggressive with it now that I know my limits? It's a difficult decision you have to make. You don't want to go too slow. You don't want to be too conservative because you're going to lose time. But you also don't just want to do the same thing, because that can result in another mistake, and that'll be your chances completely gone. You fought so hard to get back on the lead lap here. I think they were 3 wide, by the way, coming into turn 1 there with Blocker and the 2 lapped cars of Brophy and Kinsella. Connor Harrington's going to go 3 wide around Brophy now. 2 cars a lap down, 3 cars on the lead lap. All of them are trying to fight for the same position, though.
No, it's the other way around. It's 3 cars a lap down, 2 on the lead lap. Unless I misheard
who
you.
knows at this point?
I mean,
don't have the Justin Prince calculator.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It doesn't really matter. All I know is almost 4 wide once again. If these drivers keep this up, there's the potential for a 2-car breakaway. Never say never. Blocker and Harrington a little bit more willing to get elbows out. Brophy trying to find a middle line. Van der Sat trying to say, let me find another middle line. I do feel like 4 wide is moments away at the front of this field again.
I'd be shocked with the way things are going. We see that within the final 20 laps or so. Harrington took a little bit of a shot, just couldn't get the run he was looking for, but here come the freshies. Mitchell Riggs is coming on the bottom.
How important a tire is going to be, we'll get a sense now. He jinks down to the inside of the 29 machine, gets the run on the 09 car, but unable to commit around the outside. Can the Ascari Autosport machine maintain the momentum? Benzi tries to clear himself, has to lift off the throttle.
Not quite going to be clear there. That was pretty scary. Even on the freshest tires in the world, you are still going to be you're still going to be experiencing the effects of dirty air, rather. And Caleb Benzi had his first scary moment of the race. I think he sees that and he realizes maybe the bottom isn't the place for me right now. He rode the top there, got out of the dirty air, rode in a clean line up there, all against the wall. He's going to steal a little bit of the draft from Mitchell Riggs here coming into turn 3. And he's going to try the same thing, and he's just going to wash up again. He's not able to get by Riggs still.
Bit of movement up and down through the field, side by side with Tony Schowen and Stefan Larkamp as they work across the line to mark 39 to go. 1 more lap from now, and we are at that point, JP, where you can make it without having to save any sort of fuel. From this point, drivers are trying to calculate how little fuel they can put in the car, and that's where the bigger the team, the more eyes and hands and ears behind the scenes they'll have doing the math and feeding it back to the driver.
And that's going to be a very critical part of this run the rest of the way. It looks like a couple drivers just peeled off the back. You see on the pylon, Shin and Graf are saying, let's come in. And keep in mind, Blocker has to come in soon as well as Philip Kraus. So these different strategies about to cycle through. There comes Blocker's call as he moves to the bottom.
I don't think Blocker really was expecting Chin and Graf to come in a lap earlier than he anticipated. Now, will Kraus duck down with Blocker? I would not be shocked to see that. Final pit stops of the season for the outgoing champion and the new champion. We do indeed see a car peel their way on to the left-hand side. It is going to be Phil Kraus that also hits pit lane. It is nice and tidy for those 2 cars as they roll down at about 58 miles an hour. No dramas this time for them, Joey, in terms of pit speeding.
I was watching them with an eagle eye there to make sure there weren't any lockups or anything, and they did get away with it. Very well done. I think there was a little bit of a lockup from Kraus, but other than that, they both got it slowed down. No penalty. Should be a fairly straightforward stop here. They're both going to take all 4 tires, understandably, and both of them should be out straightforwardly. 9.5 seconds, 9.3 for Blocker. Looks like it's 9.3 for Kraus as well. Almost exactly the same between those 2 drivers, and I don't think you're going to be getting much shorter than that, but potentially with some of these drivers who are extending this stint for even longer, some drivers who might be coming in with about 15 laps to go, that's going to be less fuel to put in the tank. That's going to be less time on pit lane.
It's going to be about 7.5, 8 seconds, I think, as the benchmark minimum pit stop. Have to wait and see. 36 to go. Connor Harrington next on in. Of course, he did elect to come in a little bit differently now. He still probably has a little bit of fuel in the tank. Where will he cycle out in comparison? For reference, Adam Blocker is going to inherit the quote-unquote net lead of the race, I would assume, although he's going to be closer to Barrett Rolfe than I think he would have anticipated. Rolfe's going to be alongside with Phil Kraus and Joshua Chin, Tyler Graf as well. These the cars, JP, already having made their final stops.
And we've seen how powerful the undercut can be at the start of these runs to gain time. Again, will they be able to build up enough of a buffer to be able to pull off an away long run? That's the critical part, and have that buffer time. Harrington, a great pit stop, is going to jump them all.
It's 8.3, stationary in the box for Connor Harrington, and Barrett Rolfe almost slides up the track into Phil Kraus. Kraus cuts back down, expressing his displeasure. Harrington indeed makes the overcut work to his advantage, a full second quicker in total pit lane time, Joey.
Put himself in a good position here, and it's a sprint to the end now. There's still quite a few drivers who do need to come in, but for Harrington, for Blocker, for Kraus, for Josh Chin, they're all good to the end. Barrett Rolfe as well, Tyler Graff as well. They are focused on maximizing their speed right now, making sure they don't hold each other up somehow, and making sure that once everybody in front of them does pit, they do cycle in front of them, and they can maybe fight in a 4-car, 5-car pack of their own, like it looked like they might be able to do on the previous stint.
So lap time for your leader last time by, a 32.8 for Adam Blocker. What's it going to be at the line? Going to be a 32.3. So they're gaining half a second a lap. The undercut here, I think, may be at its most potent, Justin, because for the first time, the taps have been turned up to 11. There is no more holding back for those that are pitted.
Personal best lap times for the race as well for Barrett Rolfe, Joshua Chin last time by. They absolutely know they have to go. If they have any shot for the win, they have to start flying. In fact, communication also going to be critical. Kraus over the radio indicating he wants to make some swaps right now. 3 wide.
3 wide's not wise. Barrett Rolfe has to, I think, decide if he's going to work with or work against this group in trying to build that advantage to those around him. Harrington and Blocker will sort it out. Lap time's already down to a 32.7. You'll lead it at 32.9 last time by, though, so 0.2 the difference. This group building a little bit more. Bensi and Riggs find their way to pit lane, though, and respond to the group already up to speed, Joey.
I think this is a smart decision. They weren't going to wait as long as humanly possible, even with the benefits of being able to put less fuel in the car. I think they do see that that group of 5 with Harrington leading them is quite fast right now. They're working together. They are making up quite a bit of time. So Bensi and Riggs are trying to cover that off. They're going to come in to make sure they lose as little time as possible and hope that they can join Harrington and Blocker on pit exit. Bensi and Riggs in the box for 7.9 seconds. That's a second and a half faster than Harrington and the rest of the gang were. Is that Brophy in trouble again on the front straight?
It was Brophy in trouble. It was only a couple of tenths faster than Harrington, don't forget. He was 8.3 seconds stationary. Bensi and Riggs are going to be alongside, but they're going to have to get up to speed pretty quickly, you'd have to imagine. Harrington, Blocker are going to blow their way on past, but at least blow on past the second of those machines, the Ascari Autosports car. Caleb Bensi was able to take advantage. Justin, maybe the undercut not working as well as I was trying to hype up.
I'm surprised they cycled it that close, in fact, with the undercut. Some of the battling maybe cost them some of the time that they were hoping for here, but this is a big-time opportunity now for Bensi and Joe Branch to be right in that lead grouping. Should say Joe Branch can sit by, but Bensi in particular on the freshies, absolutely huge for him.
Well, Jason Brophy did Jason Brophy things on pit entry. Cycle over to the Racebot TV replay machine and will just ride on board as he tries to stamp onto the brakes way too late. He has sailed past the braking zone and yes, private label team hype and pit entry struggles. I mean, it's a pretty fitting combination. 27 laps to go. Still waiting for a handful of cars to finish off their cycle. Tony Xiao in the latest to have finished a pit stop, Joey.
Private label team hype. If you want another driver to join the roster who will muck up pit entry, call me. I'm gonna join your fray. I'm a perfect fit there, but trouble for Jason Brophy again. He fought so hard to get back on the lead lap. It was a valiant effort. Unfortunately, 2 mistakes you can't recover from. You can recover from 1 mistake, as Kraus and Blocker have done, but that second mistake, that's the one that kills you. They're still fighting tooth and nail for the lead of this second pack, though. They are not interested in just leapfrogging each other and moving forward and maintaining the speed. Caleb Bensi sending it 3 wide. He wants to lead this pack.
It goes back to something I think, Justin, you had mentioned earlier, where you said these 500-mile races compared to the regular distances that we have on Wednesday nights in the IndyCar Series mean that if you make a mistake, you get an opportunity to fight back. They're not long enough races, though, that if you make 2 mistakes, you get the opportunity to fight your way on back. Definitely keep that in mind. Danger zone's still a thing, though, for those that are pitted, because they are 1 lap down, and a caution would very much shake things up. Malechka, Newsom, Larkamp The trio at the front still yet to pit, then some separation. Sexton, Beard, with Guyon and Hacker, the final duo really on the lead lap. Marquez and Taylor, we wait to see exactly when they're going to peel off the lane and filter their way back out, as we're just down to 7, Justin, yet to pit.
And this is now to where some of these drivers are looking towards how far can they stretch it. In some cases, maybe hoping for the caution flag for the track position. Newsom in particular has been up and down the pylon throughout the day. But most of those drivers, I think, are just saying at this point, hey, we have to come in soon, if not now. We do not want to lose potential time to this, unless they start battling 2 and 3 wide, which they have been.
Just a handful of times. Haven't seen as much 4 wide as maybe we're hoping and expecting. 23 to go. 46 miles left in this season. Malechka and Newsom, the final cars yet to have pitted, with Alexander Van der Sent still trying to garner hope for a caution that will get him back onto contention on the leading lap as we wait for him to come down to the pit lane. Larkamp in his box for the final time today. Front of this net race lead, though, it's Harrington and Blocker continuing to go back and forth. It's Benzie that's most committed all the way up high, Joey.
And Van de Sant did just pit, so he is not going to get the caution. He needs to stay on the lead lap. His hopes, unfortunately, are more or less done here, but if anybody else in the field needed a caution, if anybody's fallen off the train that is still on the lead lap, this is where the caution's going to come from. If it does happen, we are in race mode now. We are in race for the win mode. There is no fuel saving, there's no tire saving, there's no nothing right now. Everybody is going to take every chance they can get at the lead right now, and that was very, very close.
That was Bauteroff bouncing off the wall. I don't think it was close. I think he's definitely taken on contact, and not for the first time today. The Ascari Autosport machine slow and dropping back through the field, still waiting for the 2 at the front to run their way down to the lane, but 3 wide for second for a moment.
A little bit tight on that exit with the squeeze. Coming up towards 20 to go. Expecting some of the drivers to duck in this time by to close up their cycles here. Riggs on that fresher rubber, going to have to make this work.
Here's the look, and you can see, yes, Barrett Rolfe trying a Ross Chastain, and then he actually managed to kiss the wall again. Don't think that really works here in the iRacing world with this new damage model, Joey, as Malechka pits.
Does not quite work. I think Barrett did get away with it, though. It wasn't a heavy hit. It wasn't a hard hit. Sometimes those little hits can damage you, but I think he has gotten away with that. He's very, very lucky to have gotten away with that. You can't do that very often, but he's gotten away with it once. Malechka is in, and look for that number here. The shortest pit time for anybody in the lead pack was 7.9, and Malechka is actually pretty slow, 8.4 seconds, but that does come from the fact that he was leading a bunch of laps all on his own there.
It also comes from the fact that he took tires, did go up on the jacks. We wondered if maybe we'd see some gambles. Not out of Malechka. Newsom also down on pit lane. Malechka's going to filter in around the last spots of the top 10. Slots in just in front of his teammate Tony Schowen, who will be able to work with him to filter him into line. Now, Newsom. She loves a gamble, and I think a gamble is what we've got, because you're right, Joey, 5.6 seconds, 19 laps to hold on the worn set of tires for the factory backs number 53.
I'm looking at the gap here. Once Alexis does cross the blue cone, I think the gap back to Blocker, it's going to be about 2 seconds. No, it's going to be even less than 2 seconds. It's still coming down. By the time Alexis is up to speed entirely, it's going to be about 1.4 seconds between Newsom and Blocker. I don't think that's enough of a gap for Newsom to be able to hang on here. She's going to be in the fight. She's going to be able to fight with everybody in this pack, so she's got track position. Unfortunately, she does have 18 lap older tires than Adam Blocker, who leads that second pack, and he and the lapped Alex Van de Sant are in the draft right now. There's no separation. That's
the problem. Van de Sant once again the bridge that's going to link Newsom with those behind. Now we see, how does it play out? The question isn't will they catch? The question is, can Newsom hold on? Already looking quite slow, and now in the dirty air, Justin. I think a move for the lead is all but inevitable. From the back to the front, here comes Adam Blocker.
A huge run for Blocker, too, and now he has Van de Sant to use as a buffer car. There's already been at least one close squeeze with the traffic since the pit stops. Now that makes it even more difficult for Riggs and Benzie to be able to find a way around them, and Newsom here. Still swap drafting though, the power slide machines. Van de Sande still at least wanting the lap back.
I think we're going to get a drag race to the line. One driver that's a little frustrated with lap traffic is Connor Harrington. Here's Alexander Van de Sande. I mean, not sure exactly what you see from that perspective. What you see from that perspective is Connor Harrington getting very, very tight as he slid up the track, Joey.
Yeah, the chopping off of the nose was somewhat aggressive, but Van de Sande moved a little bit down, but Harrington was just sending it to a little bit of a hole that was closing, and then the air gets chopped off his nose. But again, Van de Sande's just running his line there, so I'm sure I understand the frustration because Van de Sande is a lap down, but he is also, well, actually he isn't a lap down, he's going a lap down. He needs to stay in the lead of this pack though, because if we do get a late race caution, that's his only way to stay on the lead lap.
So all he's trying to do, keep himself in a spot to be able to fight and maybe help his teammate out as we have under 30 miles to go. Harrington 3 wide, Malechka joins the party as well, and now there's 3 power slide cars at the front as a power move from Robert Malechka gets him back to the front of the field, JP.
We've seen him with the jacks, he's gotta go. Newsom's not making it easy though with the draft.
Former teammates in the Lionheart Speedway Series, now rivals in the IndyCar Series. Malechka not given any quarter by his teammate Van de Sande, but he holds second for the time being. 14 laps to go, Joey. I'll throw you on the spot. Who wins this race to the checkered?
Phil Kraus, but Alexis Newsom is out of luck here in the corners. Those tires on her car are struggling in the corners. She's fine in the draft. She can stick with the pack, but where she really needs to be strong is where Malechka was just strong. Malechka is now in the fight for the lead because he was so strong on those fresher tires through turns 3 and 4. He stuck it through the middle. Alexis Newsom doesn't have that ability. She is at the behest of those older tires. She can't put the car wherever she wants. She's very, very vulnerable here.
She's trying to use all the track on offer, and now Bensie's going to feed her the dirty air, and she'll drop like a rock. I would have no doubt about that. Question is, for those behind, which way do you guess? Which line will you pick to try and follow to the front with a 3-car fight? Caleb Bensie's been impressive in the Butt Kicker Rookie of the Year standings, and now looks for his first victory to close out the year, Justin.
Really great positioning for Bensie again. Bensie's been a quiet dark horse throughout this run, has been a dark horse in a couple races. Is this the night he gets it done? A little bit of a scrape up. Newsom really dropping back. Taylor also joining the fray after running in the mid-pack all race.
Taylor and Harrington went side by side. Harrington able to get the smallest of noses in front. Front of the field sees Blocker go underneath his teammate Alexander Van de Sande, while Robert Malechka tries to go the long way around, just searching for clean air on the nose. Taylor with another send. Confidence from the Lionheart Speedway Series champion as he rises now to the 3rd spot.
Van de Sande is really the trouble car here. He takes the lead of the pack again, but he doesn't take the lead of the group. And that's going to be very, very difficult for Malechka, for Bensie, for Matt Taylor out of nowhere. If any of them want to take the lead from Adam Blocker, they're going to have to figure out a way to get him off of his game right now, because he does have a buddy in Van de Sande who's just swapping the lead with him every lap. And that little duopoly there, that's almost impossible to break up. Malechka needs to displace a Van de Sande or get Blocker out of the way next time Van de Sande passes him.
Less than 10 laps now to go. 3 power slide cars at the front, then the Madworks Motorsports machine of Taylor, the Racefist car on his outside with Caleb Bensie, and there's some history between those 2 teams, that's for sure. Harrington now pegged back into 5th. That moment that he had with Van de Sande has really cost him track position, and JP, he's been unable to work his way back forward.
Yeah, he's just struggling to be able to slice forward. He's struggling to even maintain. We've seen with Mitchell Riggs able to pick up a lot of ground on the bottom. Losing tons of time. Big cut in front though. Malechka throw with a huge block on Taylor.
And Matt Taylor now, I think, trying to take advantage and go down low, which was the wrong line to go to, because you had Van de Sande there. Bensie will sweep around the outside and grab 3rd away from him. And these are those split-second decisions that you've got to make the right call on. And it's easier said than done. Bensie wanted to try and go up high. Malechka knew that, gave him a bit of that dirty air. And sometimes as well, Joey, to be able to hold on, you've got to be mean to those around you.
do have to start getting mean. You got to start getting your elbows out, and everybody's trying to do that. I think Malechka here, this is his best chance, actually, to get by Blocker, to break up the Blocker and Van de Sant party at the head of the field. Blocker's got a little bit too much of a gap up to Van de Sant. He's going to get the draft. He's going to be able to move his way forward. Malechka's going to have to go 3 wide around the outside. Van de Sant was far slower on the front straight than I thought he would be. Here comes Malechka now. He's going to peek to the inside of Van de Sant. I think this is his chance to break it up, but he's got to get the draft to Blocker, and Blocker's not going to give it to him.
Malechka, I think, was more thinking about giving dirty air to Connor Harrington, who looked down low on Bensi, and now has to compromise. And again, Malechka does the same thing. He goes from the top to the bottom, back to the top momentarily. I wonder if this is just Power Slide trying to consolidate first and second spots, because Malechka's driving more in the rearview mirror than looking in front of him. He will go up top. He'll go all the way to the high line, but still, all he's doing here is covering off those behind.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Malechka third finally tries to make a move on Blocker and Van de Sant at the same time.
Taylor thought about trying to slide his way past on Adam Blocker. Will the number 1 car be able to hold on? No, he won't. Taylor separates Blocker from his teammates at the front. Bensi will try and do the same.
3 wide behind Van de Sant. It's going to be 4 wide with Alex Van de Sant on the high line. That is insanity. Alex backs out of that, understandably. But here comes Blocker again on the outside.
5 now to go. 10 miles, and Van de Sant will get out of Dodge. Power Slide still 1 and 2, but now your teammate is not your teammate anymore, Justin. It's about getting to the end of this race.
And right now, Taylor's right in the perfect spot to get the run. Here he comes on the outside.
Once again, 3 wide at the front of the field, and if you are watching from behind, Joey, what are you thinking about? Where are you looking for the 4, for the 5 wide?
You're just waiting for the opportunity to open up for you. If you are Matt Taylor, if you are Connor Harrington, you're just hoping that the door opens up for you, and if you're the likes of Phil Kraus, who's trying to go for his final podium of the season to keep the streak alive, you're hoping that calamity happens up front soon.
6 miles, and boy, if your heart rate isn't rising now, I don't know what's wrong with you. Justin, last lap of the race. The only lap of the race you can duck below the white line and run your way to the checkered flag using the apron.
And we've seen how close the calls have been throughout the years on this racetrack to make the blocks. Right now, Bensi trying to get on the outside.
He's got Taylor behind him trying to pop his head out to make it 4. It's very, very cool on track. The tires are giving the most grip, but now they'll snake as much as they want, and they're 4 wide for a moment at the lead. Taylor still looking to get underneath Bensi. 2 laps to go, and I can't tell you who would come out on top. The one thing I can tell you is I don't think Phil Kraus will be on the podium, Joey.
I'm not going to write him out because he has had such a good streak this season, but it is looking unlikely. It's looking like that streak will come to an end. You don't want to be the driver third up on top. You don't want to be Matt Taylor here. You want to be in these front 2. It might just come down to Malechka and Blocker.
A preview of what we'll see in 2 miles. Malechka able to control Taylor with momentum, but 1, 2, 3 as they enter the corner. 1, 2, 3 at the line. 2 more miles left this season, Justin, and almost 5 wide into turn 1.
That was near disaster for a moment. Malechka third does not want to leave that white line. Blocker is squeezing for all his worth, crossing the seams.
2 more corners to go. A year dominated by Phil Kraus. An exclamation point, though, for a single driver to close the book on the year. Robert Malechka will duck his way to the apron, and by the smallest of margins, with cars wrecking behind him. It's Malechka that grabs the victory in the Gomez Sim Industries Race for the Championship, presented by JewersCandy.com. It's the 4th win of the career for the Powerslide Motorsports number 91, and the margin at the line, Joey, 0.06 of a second.
I guess, should we really be surprised? He was the master of Michigan this season, and now he's the master of a track that's basically identical to Michigan. He did exactly what he needed to do. He kept it glued to the white line. He defended beautifully, and Blocker tried his best, but just needed a couple more of those thousandths of a second, and no better way to finish off 2022. Malechka gets some well-deserved donuts.
Here's the look at the wreck across the line. I think that was Branch and then Riggs that came together, finishing 9th and 10th on track and then collecting Phil Kraus. But it's some well-earned donuts in HyperX victory lane, JP, for Robert Malechka in that 91.
Played the race right, had the fresher tires towards the end, was able to defend with strong precision, knew he could not leave that bottom of the racetrack if he wanted a chance for the win. Didn't allow a crossover blocker either to the apron. Just played it exactly how he needed it to go to win the finale.
We'll grab a look at the SimRace247.com race results, and then we'll head towards the pro season, but first with a stop at our post-season awards. A 1/10 of a second splits the podium. It's a power slide 1 and 2, Malechka in front of Blocker, with Matt Taylor finishing a great year in 2022 with another podium to add to the collection. For Connor Harrington, a great result. Marred slightly but the finish, but he ran at the front and will close the book on the year and look forward to 2023. Benzie's rookie campaign comes to an end in 5th, with Tony Showen and Joshua Chin behind in 6th and 7th, with Andrew Marquez, Joe Branch and Mitchell Riggs the top 10. Bit of drama for the 28 and the 09 as they came across the line, but big movers for Taylor, Showen and Riggs, double-digit gains for them. Phil Kraus signs off as the king, down in 11th, squeezed to the wall across the line, but in front of Alexis Newsom, and then the rest of the field. Brian Beard, Stefan Larkamp, Bradley Sexton, Barrett Rolfe, and Tyler Graf. 8 through 9 seconds split from your leader, and then Ron Hacker, Alex Guyon, and Matt Houston to complete the top 20. Trevor Malone in front of Luke Daniels. The final cars on the lead lap, with Alexander Van der Sant, Jason Brophy, and Michael Goodman all scored 1 lap down. Andrew Kinsella, Kai Bommersbach, and AJ Musselman, the 28 cars that took to the green about 2 odd hours ago. What a way to close the book on the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Robert Malechka still standing by and sitting in HyperX victory lane, but it leads us then into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Robert Malechka's not even going to move the car from the start-finish line. He's standing by to give us a chat. Rob, what a thriller all the way through. At one point, it looked like he was so focused on the fuel-saving game, but after that, boy, did you have to fight for it.
Yeah, that was the name of the game today, just riding in map 4, trying to get the best mileage as possible for about, 230 laps there, it seemed. I actually thought doing what Alexis did, I believe, and I think she took tires only and stretched it out, but I was worried during that second last stop that they were going to be too far ahead, so I short-fueled, but luckily, in my case, that strategy didn't work out because I kind of thought that was going to be the winning strategy. But nonetheless, 1-2 for Power Slide in the season finale. We'll take it. Adam, myself, and Alex worked really well together there. Just making sure we gave each other space and got us a nice 1-2 finish.
In terms of the season, 3 wins, Iowa, Motegi, and Auto Club, all very different. Well, how do you reflect on your performance over the course of the year?
Not too bad, sorry, kind of eating, but road courses got much better, I think. Had a few podiums, I believe, and yeah, just doing what I do on ovals, especially these 2-mile tracks. I know me and Adam I think we dominated these, other than Pocono, which got kind of unlucky at, but all in all, pretty good season. I think maybe P2 in points, I don't know.
What's the plan then in 2023 as we move forward to a new year?
Yeah, doing Monday nights, open and fixed in the IndyCar. I believe the Indy Elite Series is going to be starting up in about a month or so on Sunday nights. So it's about the same time this race started. But other than that, kind of taking the time off, have a little break from this car, and get ready for next season for Lionheart.
Sounds like a plan, that's for sure. Congrats on your 3rd win of the year, Rob, and on what's been a good 2022.
Thanks, Sergeant.
over from one power slide driver to another. Adam Blocker pushed all the way to the end, but Adam, it was not to be at the very final race to get another win to add to the collection. Been a year where you've gone through a lot of ups and downs, but also missed a lot of the races. It must feel weird for you to be here and not be celebrating another Lionheart Championship.
Honestly, it doesn't feel too weird. Honestly, it's just weird for me to be racing. I missed the last 4 or 5 races, so yeah, just glad to be back. Yeah, that race was crazy in and of itself. Getting a drive-through for speeding in the pits and then managing to come back and work with Rob to get the team a win, so it was pretty mega overall.
In your perspective, what's it like in this sort of a race, Adam, where you are literally wheel to wheel and in the draft for 500 miles with no chance to really relax too much other than trying to focus on your fuel saving?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, the first 2 stints for me were kind of, just sitting in line and saving, but you do have to work to get a good number, and you saw a few of us were able to go more laps than anyone else by kind of doing that effectively. But yeah, I mean, once I got the penalty, and then the whole race was dynamic, especially I got back on the lead lap with Phil, but we had a disadvantage the whole last few stints because we had to do full tank runs, not like the half tank at the end. So for example, at the end I had older tires by a lot than Rob, so that meant I couldn't hold the bottom if I wanted to, so I had to make the second lane work. And I think it's possible I could have won, but in the end, my main goal was to make sure that as a team we got the win.
Looking forward to 2023. What's the schedule looking like? I know you don't have the Lionheart schedule, but what's the plan in the real world in your trackside responsibilities in the NTT IndyCar Series?
Yeah, just going to be, continuing it for another year. Whether I race in Lionheart full-time depends on what the Lionheart schedule looks like, so I'm sure George is going to be announcing that soon, and I'll be able to pick apart what races I can make and if I can contend for the championship or not. But either way, I'll at least be doing, 2/3 of the races or so, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Congratulations on a great run to close out the year, Adam, and well, hopefully we see you more in 2023.
Yep, see you guys then. Thanks for all the hard work this season, and congrats to Phil on the champion.
Adam Blocker, the outgoing Lionheart champion, congratulates the new Lionheart champion. Matt Taylor pushed the Power Slide duo all the way to the end. But Matt, I'm sure you can't be too disappointed with third at the end, given what a roller coaster of a race that was.
Yeah, that was wild. It was funny because about midway, it kind of just focused on saving fuel and wasn't really a fuel save race, at least initially. But as that went on, it turned out, as Tyler was pushing and I was on comms with him, they were going to be short or an extra stop front without some extra saving. And kind of because of the packs I ended up with where we got separated, I just kind of fell in line and saved fuel and let the guys up front try to catch us up. I didn't want to see that caution. But then we get to the end and played that pit strategy, I think, just right, so he had some fresh tires and was able to get up there and, yeah, push them for all they were worth. That was fun.
It's been a pretty good year for you, 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series champion. Are we expecting to see you across the gamut of Lionheart competitions again next year, or are you going to be trying to have a little bit more sanity in your life?
I really enjoy it. I love racing here, so the plan is, again, to run all 3 series and hopefully improve on the IndyCar. There's still plenty to learn there, and come back with a stronger season next year.
Congratulations on a great year and a great race to finish it off, Matt. Third at our Lionheart IndyCar Series finale.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So Matt Taylor will round out our podium interviews, but we've still got plenty to get through. It's time for post-race award shows to close out the season. We're now joined by the Lionheart Series director, George Anzaldo. And George, we're going to start with a man that's been waiting to collect this award for a rather long time.
You did all the...
Thank you, Arjuna, and wow, what a fantastic season. This has been definitely a record-breaking year for Phil Kraus. I mean, he came on the scene and really, took charge. And it's my pleasure to award our 2022 season champion, presented by Butt Kicker, to Phil Kraus. Congratulations, Phil. You're going to be winning some great prizes: a Gomez Sim Industries Formula Pro Elite rim, a Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit, some cash, congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about your season?
Oh yeah, first off, thank you, George, and thank you for putting on a really fun, amazing championship. It's probably one of the pinnacles of the IndyCar on iRacing. But yeah, that aside, thank you again. But yeah, it's honestly, it's been a much better season than I ever expected it to be. Because I mean, can you really ever expect to get 21 podiums in one season? But yeah, it's an amazing season with an amazing bunch of guys at Private Label Team Hype, and just an amazing bunch of guys in Lionheart as a whole. And I'm just grateful.
Thanks, Phil. We definitely appreciate you being a part of the league, and you're now, in some elite company with our previous champions. So we definitely welcome you to that circle, and congratulations again on a fantastic season.
We'll keep Phil around and we'll keep it moving because there's another award that, George, you've got to also hand on over to Phil.
Absolutely. This one is a very special award that we hand out every year. This is our Driver of the Year presented by Butt Kicker. This award goes to someone who really has shown time in and time out their commitment to the league, as well as just their excellent performance on track. So this year the award is being presented to Andrew Kinsella. And Andrew, we want to say thank you again for all your work, all the things that you've done for the league, especially with the setups. You have been responsible for our brand of racing for a number of years now, and you really have brought something special to this league. So it's my honor to present you with the Driver of the Year award. Congratulations, Kinsella. Tell us about your season.
Yeah, thanks, George. Really honored to be named Driver of the Year here. I was a little bit shocked when you messaged me earlier today and let me know that this was coming. So just really, really grateful for everything that you've done for the league, George. And I've been part of the admin team now. I think it's going on 6 or 7 seasons now, and doing the setups for a long time. But really, the person who does the most work in this league is you. So very, very grateful that you saw fit to give me this honor. In terms of the season, it didn't end the way I was hoping for with that penalty, but it was a fun race. It was a fun season, and just can't wait to step back from the setups next year and maybe enjoy running full-time a little bit more, having to do a little bit less work. But it's always been an honor and a privilege to be a part of this league, and just so grateful to you, grateful to our sponsors like Butt Kicker, who make this league happen. It's one of a kind here on iRacing, and just a tremendous honor.
Thanks again, Andrew, and so well deserved. You've been a fantastic addition to the league. Thank you.
Now we will bring back in Phil Kraus to talk about the second award that the rookie has won.
Okay, so to present the Rookie of the Year,
we have Chris Fowler standing by to present the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and so our Rookie of the Year is presented by Butt Kicker. You'll get some cash and some Butt Kicker goodies, and I think this comes to no surprise. Our Rookie of the Year, presented by Butt Kicker, is Phil Kraus. Phil, congratulations, man. Can you tell us what this means for the Rookie of the Year in one of the toughest rookie fields that we've had in Lionheart?
Yeah, it means about as much as winning the championship, because most of the people that were in the rookie field were the people I was also racing for the championship outside of Adam, Chin, and I feel like I'm forgetting someone here, but Connor. But yeah, it was a really tough rookie field for sure. I don't know if it's one of the toughest ones in Lionheart's history, but there were some really good drivers in there, and once again honored to win another award in Lionheart.
So congratulations again, man.
It's been a good couple of years for the Private Label Team Hype, not just with Phil Kraus' success this year, but with continued success in the Team Championship.
And so our team championship is presented by HyperX. Each member of this team will win some HyperX goodies, a headset, a mouse, and a keyboard. And of course, I think it's no surprise with Phil winning all the races this year. This goes to Private Label Team Hype. Congratulations, Private Label Team Hype. Can you give us some insight on how you guys got this and what it means to win the team championship again?
Yeah, I guess it's me here. So it was a really good year, especially with Phil doing what he did. He came on and Chin couldn't necessarily run all the races, and so Phil came on kind of later last year anyway, and dominated this year, and it made my job and Connor's job a lot easier because we just had to be decent, and we were. And so that's Power Slide missed some races and had some stuff, but I think with Phil being the way he was, that there wasn't going to be much that they could do. Glad we had it locked up going into this race. Not the best race for us, to end the season. Kind of disappointed with how mine went, but overall as a team, really good year for a private label team, Hype, the ethical machine. So
awesome! Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Sometimes just surviving the crazy Lionheart races is ultra important, and that's the case when it comes to our cleanest driver of the year.
Awesome. So I'm here to present our Cleanest Driver Award, which is brought to us from Gomez Sim Industries. This award is for the driver who has the fewest incidents and the lowest average across a full 22 race season, so without drops. And we're excited and happy to present this award to Andrew Marquez, who finished the season with a total of 18 incidents for a .82 Inc. average per race. So congratulations, Andrew. How did you do it, man?
It was all about just trying to keep it clean and consistent, especially since this is my first year, just trying to feel out the competition and seeing how they race, and then just trying to race them just as hard but fair as well. So thanks for this award, and I hope I can come back next year stronger.
Congratulations, Andrew, and yeah, you'll be picking up some cash and a Butt Kicker Gamer Plus and some other goodies.
Being clean doesn't always mean you can run as many miles as those around on track, and so we'll bring back in Phil Kraus to talk about the Ironman Award for 2022.
So I'd like to present our 2022 Ironman Award, which is given to us by Next Level Racing. Again, this would be without drops, so the total miles covered over the entire season. And Phil Kraus, you've put in 4,634 miles. So you've kept it clean, you've kept it consistent, and you've finished races. So it's a fantastic job, and you're going to get some awards and prizes from Butt Kicker and some cash. And just wanted to thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
One final award to talk about, and we'll bring in Tyler Graff to discuss the Turning Point Award, the driver that can turn things around the best over the course of the year.
Hi, I'm presenting the Turning Point Award presented by Graphics Esports. Like Arjuna said, this award's awarded to the person that has the biggest uptick in performance from mid-season to the end of the season. And that award this year will go to Kite Bombersback, and he will get a HyperX Quadcast S microphone. And then Kite, where did you think the season turned around for you?
Really, I have to pinpoint Suzuka, and honestly, your help at Suzuka. I was kind of overdriving the car a lot at the start of the season. I came in with a lot of aspirations, for Rookie of the Year, and seeing Philip Kraus just run like he has. It was a little disheartening, but at Suzuka I kind of put that aside and just said, all right, I'm going to get the best that I can get. And while I didn't end up having a very good race there, my pace from the rest of the season onward is just a lot better in my opinion.
Awesome, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's going to wrap up our awards ceremony. Before we let our series director go, George Anzaldo, I think there's some thanks to be given for all the partners that make this happen.
Thanks, Arjuna. Yeah, just want to wrap things up for the season by just thanking our sponsors for the 2022 year, and also our viewers and fans who've tuned in all season long. HyperX, Mazda Racing, Butt Kicker as the sponsor to the IndyCar Series, GSI, Next Level Racing, Graphics, SimRace 247, Extreme Scoring, Guys, Games, and Beer, Prospects by SI, and finally ESTV, and especially you guys at RaceSpot for providing all of our live coverage. You guys have, just done an amazing job, and we couldn't be happier. And also would like to officially say that we're going to be back again with RaceSpot TV for 2023. So we're super excited about that. Couldn't see us anywhere else, and we're really looking forward to 2023 again with you guys. So thank you again, and it's been a fantastic year. Thank you, everyone.
time to wrap things up for the year then. Joey, glad to have you join us for the season finale, and we got more Lionheart coverage coming in 2023. Here's a final look at the journey that we've been on across 285 days. Started back at the very start of March. It's landed up here in the middle of December at the Auto Club Speedway. A great way to close off the year, but plenty of drama as well.
Plenty of drama is an understatement. One of the closest finishes of the year. I'm already looking forward to about 4 months from now when the season starts again, and there's so many more storylines to talk about. Can Phil Kraus keep up the incredible momentum he had this season? Can he do another season where he gets 21 podiums out of 22 races? Probably unlikely. That seems like a very difficult task to overcome again, but he's certainly going to try. There's going to be a full field of drivers looking to take him down, though, and make next year's championship a little bit more of a close affair.
I mean, JP, 2 years now that we've got to cover this Lionheart IndyCar series, 2 dominant years from 2 champions. It's the type of year that last year we said we'd never see again, except Phil Kraus said, you know what, I'm going to go one better and finish on the podium in every single one of the races, bar the last one. It's not something that we can expect again next year. The series has been the most competitive it has ever been, likely to carry forward to 2023.
I'm very curious how a lot of these drivers could perform in 2023. Of course, Phil Kraus looking to defend a title. You have Connor Harrington, of course, that's been strong for the past few seasons. Matt Taylor's picked up the tempo. And don't forget about some of the rising stars we've seen throughout the campaign, including some of the shining stars like Ben C tonight. It should be a fun 2023, but it was a very fun end to 2022.
Well, all good things come to an end. Fortunately, still one final race in the Lionheart suite of competitions this coming Thursday. Don't miss the Lionheart Retro Series as they hit the track here at Fontana to close the year for all Lionheart competitions. Today, though, marks the start of Phil Kraus's era as the King of Lionheart. We'll do it all again in 2023. It will be live here on RaceSpot TV, so join us once again in March at the Sunshine State to get things underway. For now, though, on behalf of the team at RaceSpot TV, alongside Joey Tebben, alongside Justin Prince, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, signing off with the Dallara IR18s putting on a show to close out the year. Into the night sight we went, and what a race that Robert Malechka ended up winning in a slightly different way to the way that he anticipated. We'll see you next year. For now, so long and goodbye. We celebrate the king, Phil Kraus, in Lionheart.